Hello, this is Adam Graham from the present or close enough to it, bringing you our latest compilation of archive podcasts. These will be the first podcast of 2010 and will include the Yours Truly Johnny Dollar episode we presented on New Year's Day, and then the entirety of week 11. And then we should be back to each compilation containing a week of programs until we're playing week 40, which will include a 1-hour special, and I'm not sure how that will work, or maybe we'll have found some workaround on the 4-hour limit. As always, because we're dealing with very old podcasts, any offers or information offered may not be up to date. Many websites will not be valid. You cannot vote for me on Podcast Alley, and the Netflix affiliate link no longer works. Netflix, what was I thinking that was going to take off? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this compilation of mostly unedited podcasts, but with information removed to avoid some of the repetition. All right, let's go. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. This is your host, Adam Graham, bringing you yours truly, Johnny Dollar. A Happy New Year to you. You got any comments on the show, send them my way, box13@greatdetectives.net. Please cast your vote for us. Comments are much appreciated, but if you can just cast a vote, it really helps the show to grow. Go to podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. We got one comment on Podcast Alley I'll go ahead and share, and this one comes from the other side of the world from me in Western Australia, the city of Perth. Great podcast. I'm enjoying it immensely. Thank you, and PK. Well, thank you so much for listening in Western Australia. We've got a few more comments we'll share in upcoming days, and we've actually got a letter we'll share at the end of the program. Before we get started with today's episode of Johnny Dollar, I want to encourage you, wherever you happen to be traveling, as we go into the new year, remember Johnny Dollar Air. Johnny Dollar Air, go to JohnnyDollarAir.com. That goes to Priceline, and you get all the benefits of being able to name your own price, not get charged booking fees when you book on their scheduled fares, as well as just a wide variety, whether it's cruises, rental cars, hotels, airlines, tickets. Just go to JohnnyDollarAir.com. And remember, when you do that, it doesn't cost you any more than if you would normally go to Priceline, but it does help support us continuing to do the podcast. So please remember JohnnyDollarAir.com. This episode of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar, this is somewhat of an unusual situation. I'm not certain, nowhere I've read could I quite understand the reasoning for it. But basically, there's an initial run of Johnny Dollar that ends on April 22nd, and then it doesn't start up again for 3 months. It's really weird, because if, say, this were June or even late May, you could kind of understand, well, they're stopping for the summer, and then it might restart in late August. To stop the show in April and then restart in July, kind of odd. But we'll go ahead and we'll get into it. This is called the Case of Barton Drake, and for those, it's kind of interesting too, because we skipped ahead last time we listened to the Christmas episode. So we're going from a Christmas episode to an episode that's set at Easter time, and they actually reference that. So let's go ahead and we will get into the Case of Barton Drake here on the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio.
Time now for Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. The next half hour has its baggage packed to take a trip with America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator, Johnny Dollar. At Insurance Investigation, he's just an expert. At making out his expense account, he's an absolute genius.
Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, American Pioneer Life Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. Attention, W.K. Green, General Manager. The following is an accounting of my expenditures in the case of Barton Drake, or how I played ducks and drakes with a drake who ducked. Expense account, item 1. $100 I'm charging you for 1 hour's sleep I missed answering your telephone call at 9 o'clock in the morning. Expense account, item 2. $1.50. I had to go out for breakfast. The Easter Bunny didn't leave me any eggs. Item 3, cab fare to your office, $1. Tip the driver, $1.
Good morning, Johnny.
Why don't we make that good night sometime soon? Shall we, Chickie?
Well, I've had to type up some of your expense accounts. I think maybe an evening with you might be fun. But business first. Old Stonewall's waiting for you.
Hasn't he gotten out of that military kick yet?
No, he still thinks he's a general. But to me, he's still just what he was before he ever went into the Army.
His belts never stopped fighting the battle of the businessman's bulge, huh? Well, forward march. Good morning, Mr. Green, sir. Mr. Dollar reporting as ordered, sir.
Addy, Oh, yeah. What's this saluting and heel-clicking about?
Oh, I thought you might be homesick for some military courtesy.
Yeah, I'd be surprised to get any kind of courtesy from you. But we're not paying you to be polite. Sit down. Here. I got a job for you. Here. I had a copy made of the file in that case. You can take it with you.
Thanks. Barton Drake, huh? Oh, yeah, I remember him. Let's see. Life insurance, $30,000. Beneficiary, Mrs. Barton Drake. Well, what is it? Is he dead or just dying?
Neither, we hope.
Well, if you'll pardon a little before-noon philosophy, just by living, a man is slowly dying of old age.
We have a statistical department to worry about that, Dollar. Your job is to find this man, Barton Drake.
Okay. What's the story?
As far as the company is concerned, the story started one night just short of 7 years ago.
Oh, that would make it 1942.
Yes, the same year I was called upon to fight for my country.
Yeah. In the insurance division, Pentagon Building, Washington, D.C.
Huh?
But don't get me wrong. Those who served can be just as proud of what they did as those who fought. As you were saying.
I merely used the word fight as a general term.
Yes, General. Barton Drake, one night about 7 years ago?
Yes. When we issued the life policy on Drake, he listed his occupation as that of hardware store proprietor.
Hardware? As I recall it, he specialized in unregistered pistols, handcuff keys, and hacksaws. And if I'm not wrong, at the time he disappeared, he was under suspicion of grand larceny and wanted for assault with intent to kill a police officer.
Yeah, that's right. At the time, he was suspected of a number of large robberies.
Now, refresh me on that cop shooting. How'd that happen?
You remember. When the police arrived at the house to pick him up, he opened fire from the bedroom window, made a dashboard out of the back to his own car, and there was a chase during which the car skidded and went through the rail of a bridge into the river.
Oh, yes. Now I remember, yeah. They never did recover the body or the loot. All they got back was a wet Buick.
Dollar, that was 7 years ago. At least it will be 7 years in 1 more week. At that time, Barton Drake will be declared legally dead by the probate court. His wife has already instituted proceedings.
And when the court says she's a widow, she says, I want my $30,000, and you have to pay it, right?
Exactly. But we're not going to pay that $30,000 if we can help it. At 9 o'clock this morning, the Missing Persons Bureau of the New York Police Department called us and gave us reason to hope that Drake is still alive.
What happened? Did they see him in a crystal ball?
You don't know how close to the truth you came, Dollar.
Oh?
The Missing Persons boys have a new habit these days. Whenever there's a television show where there's a public crowd involved, they watch it. Last night, they think they spotted Barton Drake at the prize fight. Now, that's all we've got to go on, but we think he's alive and that he's somewhere in New York.
Well, that's a start, anyway. I know where to find New York. Expense account, item 4, $7. Mileage, Hartford to New York. I stopped in Bridgeport to soak up a dish of coffee and whatever information there might be in the insurance file. Of the two, the coffee was the stronger. All I learned from the file was Drake's physical measurements, the birthplace of his mother, his wife's maiden name, the last known quotation on his blood pressure, and his home address in Manhasset, Long Island, to which I went. The house had a $40,000 look about it, and its grounds were being manicured by a gardener who had a $12 a day look about him.
Yes, sir?
I'd like to see Mrs. Drake. Here's my card.
Yes, sir. Get in, please.
Thank you.
If you wait here in the hall, sir, I'll go tell her you're here.
Maid had a $40 a week look about her and completed the picture of prosperity. For a hardware merchant, Barton Drake had died leaving his wife living a soft life. Either that or he was still alive and not giving his wife grounds for divorce on the basis of non-support. Or she was that certain kind of gal who wouldn't have any trouble making that certain kind of man get up that certain kind of money. And when I saw her, I knew not only that I couldn't afford her, but that Drake probably hadn't been able to, which probably led to his undoing. Just to give you an idea, she was wearing a diamond necklace and a negligee, and it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Mr. Dollar?
Mrs. Drake?
Yes, Stella Drake. I'm having breakfast. Won't you come in and join me?
Well, I'll join you, but no breakfast. I just had a tomato surprise. Lunch.
Oh, I'm glad you didn't mean me. Come on, right in here. Are you sure you won't have some breakfast?
No, thanks. I couldn't bring myself to hurt that poor, tired trout you've got there.
Oh, please. That's a genuine English kipper.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I didn't recognize it without its monocle.
Oh, you're more fun than an eye-opener. I should have you around when I get up every day.
Well, I have something to tell you that should make you really feel good.
You don't mean that bunch of stuffed shirts at the insurance company have decided to give me my money without going through all that fuss at probate court?
Oh, I've got better news than that. You may not get that money. But we think you have a good chance of getting your husband back.
What?
Yeah, the New York police think they saw him last night. Alive. Oh. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe that doesn't make you happy.
Why, yes. Yes, of course it makes me happy, but to live without a man for 7 years and then have a stranger just sit across the table and calmly tell you he's alive, it's just too much. Tell me, where did they find him?
They didn't. They think they spotted him at the fights they were watching on television. I imagine they're looking for him. I know I am.
Well, it's impossible. If he were alive and back in New York, he'd come to me.
That's what I was hoping, Mrs. Drake.
Well, I don't believe it. Why would he do a thing like that to me? Why would he make me suffer all these years? I think you'd better go now. I've got to be alone. I've got to think. Oh, Barton, why? Why? Please, Mr. Dollar. I won't be alone.
I figured if she wanted to be alone, it was for a good reason. Because that lather she'd gotten into was strictly from soap opera. She flooded me to the door on a tide of tears. Once outside, I picked up the hedge clippers the gardener had conveniently left near the front walk and pruned the telephone wires leading into the house. Then I took a plant on the place from the other side of the street. I figured Mrs. Drake would want to share her troubles with somebody, and with the phone wires cut, she'd have to leave the house to do it, giving me a chance to follow her. And that's the way it worked out. She led me someplace, all the way into New York City, but not to Barton Drake. That would have been too easy. Once in Manhattan, she headed for a drugstore and a telephone booth. I slipped into the phone booth beside hers. I got the receiver off the hook and my nickel in the slot in time to use an old trick of mine. As she dialed, I tried to duplicate it with my phone. She dialed. And I dialed. I was just one number behind her all the way. When she was through dialing, I held off dialing the last number on my phone until she got an answer. And then I let it go. The number she was calling was busy. There was room for coincidence, but it was good enough for me. I jotted down the number I'd gotten on my little telephone game of tag and then listened.
I've got to see you right away. We're in trouble. right, I'll be here for you. The usual place.
The usual place turned out to be the usual place to meet trains, Grand Central Station. But no train ever pulled into where Mrs. Drake went. As a matter of fact, no man ever did. Unless he was a plumber, maybe. That's right, where the ladies go to powder their noses things. She came out 30 minutes later alone, but she never hit the street. Instead, she went through the tunnel into the adjoining Commodore Hotel and checked into room 407. The only room I could get was 1313. Expense account item 5, $10. Tip to hotel detective for keeping an eye on the IFO in 407. Item 6, $35. Purchase of portable phonograph. Item 7, 65 cents. Purchase of phonograph record, Frank Sinatra singing night and day. With this for ammunition, I went back to my hotel room and, gunning for a bird I'd never seen, I set up the phonograph near the telephone, put on the record, and placed call to the number Mrs. Drake had called earlier in the day.
Hello.
Hello there. 7 p.m. again, and this is your favorite disc jockey, Happy Jack the Money Man. Yes, your favorite disc jockey, your spinner with the winners. Tell me, are you listening to our show?
My radio is not on. Goodbye.
Oh, hold the phone, madam. A little thing like that doesn't make any difference to Happy Jack. Here's all you have to do to win a house full of prizes. You just listen closely over the phone and identify today's puzzle platter, and you'll win all these wonderful prizes. A genuine Sunbeam Mixmaster that makes those fresh little eggs just happy to get beat up. Yes, and you'll clean up with the next prize. Make a real clean sweep with a Hoover vacuum cleaner with all attachments and no strings attached. And to send you tripping happily through life, you'll also receive a handsome set of easy-to-lug luggage, a pair of Gladiator bags. Are you interested?
Why, of course I am.
All right, then. Here's the tune.
Night and day.
There it is. What's the title of that song?
Night and day.
You're right. You win all the sensational prizes. Quickly now, give me your name and address. They'll be delivered tonight.
Mrs. Knott,
Yes, Mrs. Knott. The street number?
127 East 89th Street, apartment 3C.
Thank you, Mrs. Knott. You'll get the whole works immediately. Expense account, items 8, 9, and 10. $39.50 purchase of Mixmaster, $79.50 purchase of vacuum cleaner, and $89.50 purchase of luggage. You may resent this expenditure, but there's one thing you must remember. Nobody can resist trading their name and address for something for nothing. I felt like an out-of-season Santa Claus when I knocked on the door of apartment 3C at 127 East 89th Street. The frame suddenly became a picture frame encasing a live version of Whistler's grandmother, complete with wheelchair and crocheted afghan.
Just bring them in and set them down.
Yes, ma'am. I'm Happy Jack, and I'm glad to meet you.
Right in here and set them down.
Ah, yes. There you are, Mrs. Knott. You lucky woman, you.
Is that all?
Almost. Now, all we need from you is a little information. Just some background on today's winner to pass along to my radio audience.
Be off with you, young man. I'll write you a letter.
Oh, but come now, Mrs. Knott.
Never mind. I have no time now.
Just a few questions while I check you out on the Hoover.
I don't need any checking out. Now go away.
I must say, Mrs. Knott, you're a bad winner. So now I'm afraid I'm going to have to stick around to find out how good a loser you are.
What do you mean? Come in.
You.
Stella, do you know this man?
Do I know him? He's that insurance investigator, Johnny Dollar.
Granny came flying out of the wheelchair, multiplying in height by 3. When I first saw Granny's hand flying toward me, it looked like there was an old-fashioned wedding ring on each finger. But just too late, I saw it was only a set of brass knuckles.
In just a moment, we'll return to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. CBS cordially invites you to hear the adventures of Philip Marlowe and the stories of modern crimes and their solutions as unfolded on Gangbusters when they come to you every Saturday night on most of these same CBS stations. Tomorrow night, Philip Marlowe will investigate the mystery behind the cloak of Kamehameha, and Gangbusters will deal with the case of the Callous Killer. And now back to yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
When I woke up, the thunder and lightning in my head was getting an answer from the sky. And I started getting some answers, too.
You, James, give me a page.
Granny's voice had changed to the bass register, and its owner was smoking a big cigar. I stayed on the floor and quiet. I didn't want the brass knuckles crooning me another lullaby.
I'm awful close to fouling up the whole deal. I told you I didn't want you to try to collect on that insurance. Why'd you do it?
It's $30,000, that's why.
To hear you talk, you'd think you were going hungry. What do you think I am, some empty milk bottle you can run down to the corner and get your nickel back on? What were you trying to do anyway, sell me out?
Sell you out? You know what started this trouble. You had to go to the fights last night. Oh, a big man. Dumb cops, you call them.
Don't worry about me. They haven't found me. I'll take care of myself. But not with you lousing me up, getting mixed up with dirty dealers like this guy Dulce.
Oh, you're so smart. Why did you let him in here?
Shut up! He wanted to give me something for free, that's why. Well, I've got something for him. A free boat ride. Wheel that chair over here. We'll take him out in that.
The wheelchair ride was short, to the street. The auto ride was longer, to the ocean. And from what I could gather on the dock, the boat ride was to be even longer, to my doom. I was still playing Sleeping Beauty and listening to the supposed-to-be dead man, Barton Drake, telling his wife Stella how he was going to make my slumber permanent.
Come on, get a move on. I've got his hands tied. Hurry up with his feet.
I'm almost through. There. Now what?
Now, stand back while I heave him up on the deck.
Well, aren't you going to tie him to something?
For what? If they ever find this boat, they're going to find it empty. One good wave out there, and this guy goes for a swim. There. The wheels last. He's got plenty of gas and plenty of ocean out there. That'll teach Mr. Happy Jack. Now I'm giving him away.
Taking that salt shower bath with my clothes on wasn't the big chill in my life. I was scared. My heart was racing faster than the boat engine. And for the first 20 minutes, all I could think about was hanging onto that slippery deck with all I had to hang with, my hopes and my heels. I was on a thin strip of deck aft of the wheel. Hard by my hands was a deck cleat. With that for a starting point, I went to work, trying to out-navigate that rope, with which Barton Drake had lashed the wheel. I worked my side wrists over the cleat and dropped my legs down over the side into the icy racing water. I had rigged myself into a human jury rudder to swing the boat off its course. I didn't know where it would take me, but I didn't care so long as it wasn't out to the open sea.
Might as well tell you. Your boat sunk and you ruined the dock last night doing it. You have to pay for it.
Oh.
My name's Fred Kindly. I pulled you off the beach. I'm expecting to be paid for that, too.
Will it cost me to find out where I am?
Well, it ain't worth nothing. Talk ain't. You're on Slate Island. Ain't worth much neither. All slate. Didn't have sense to grow no chalk to go with it.
Dandy. Where are my clothes?
Out in the sun.
How about my wallet?
Fish must have got it.
Mind if I feel your back for fins?
Now, don't get funny, young feller. Might want to be getting off this island someday.
Someday. Some minute is more like it. You got a boat?
Of course I got a boat, but ain't got much food. Maybe if I could afford to buy some of supply canned goods when I got to the mainland,
Well, how much would it cost?
Much as $100, maybe?
Okay, it's a deal. Let's go.
Hold on now. Only said maybe. Come think of it, might cost $200.
Oh, okay. You swindler. $200 then.
Oh, swindler am I? I say a fellow's might as well have the game as his name. Makes the price $500 worth of grade A canned goods. And if you don't want to pay it, you can get out from this shack and wait for the mailboat.
Maybe I will. When does it get here?
Week from Tuesday.
Okay. He'll get you $500 worth of canned goods. When can we start?
I'll give you your clothes soon as you put it in writing and sign your name.
Where's the paper?
Right here. Keep it handy. Just fill in the amount here. $500 worth. It's a regular contract for shipwreck.
Okay. Give it here. 500. And where do I sign?
Right there at the bottom.
There you are. All signed.
That's a peculiar name. Ali Khan.
I'd had more than my share of wind the night before, so I decided to throw caution to it. I went to the building at 127 East 89th Street and up to apartment 3C. First I knocked with my knuckles and got no answers. So then I knocked with my feet. Well, what do you know? The lock broke. There was nobody home. And Barton Drake must have been out calling himself Granny at the moment because the wheelchair part of his disguise was also among the missing. The closet was empty, and the brand new Gladiator bags I had delivered the previous evening were nowhere to be found. Well, nobody could say I hadn't made it easy for Drake to make a getaway with my little giveaway. I even supplied the luggage. But all the traffic wasn't going. Some of it was coming. Oh, well, Stella, there's one bad thing about kicking your way into places. You can't lock the door behind you. Well, now that you're in, you better come all the way in.
What are you doing here?
You should be asking me what I'm doing alive. The only answer I've got for that is I don't murder easily.
Where's Barton?
Oh, that was the next question I was going to ask you. Now that one's gone, I've got a couple more I'd like to ask you. And don't argue.
I don't know anything.
Well, then let me tell you something. If you're not guilty of anything else, you are guilty of attempted insurance fraud. That's in my department. The tougher you make it on me, the tougher I'm going to make it on you. Now, about those questions. How long has your husband been back here in New York?
He never left here.
Oh, the night his car crashed through the bridge, he just grabbed himself a hideaway in New York and stayed put, huh? How long has he been using that old lady disguise?
All the time.
Okay. Well, now my last question. That bag in your hand, where were you going? Okay, let's find out. Give me that bag. Uh-huh. What's this? Well, it's either a bathing suit or a two-piece handkerchief. And that blouse there, that doesn't look like it's for dinner wear in an igloo. You were headed south.
So we were headed south. What about...
We, huh? If you ask me, and I doubt that you will, so I'll tell you anyway, your hopes just headed south. Lady, you've been double-crossed. Your husband took off without you.
I don't believe it. If he left here, he had a good reason.
That's your guess, but we're not playing your hunches. We're playing mine from here on in. Just where did he say you were going?
I don't remember.
Maybe it'll help if first you remember what I told you about insurance fraud. It's good for 10 to 20 years. Now, do you remember?
He bought tickets on the Orange Blossom Special for Florida. It leaves Penn Station in an hour and a half.
Oh, you've got that a little backwards. The Orange Blossom Special pulls out in half an hour.
What?
That doesn't even give me enough time to get down there. Get out of my way. Sit down.
Information.
Hello. Information. Look, I want the telephone number of the Penn Station branch of the Travelers' Aid Society. This was once when I didn't want the society to aid the traveler. I told them that Barton Drake was my invalid aunt and as nutty as a fruitcake. With Stella's help, I described his costume from the daisies on his hat to the buttons on his shoes. I tagged it off with a warning that when my aunt left the house, she thought she was a honeybee and was on her way to throw herself in front of the Orange Blossom Special, wheelchair and all. The guy on the other end of the line took off to round up the railway police, and I took off to round up a taxi. I rode the escalator into the main waiting room, and halfway down, I spotted Barton Drake in his grandmother getup. He was surrounded by police, and the police were surrounded by a small crowd. I walked over.
Orange Blossom Special.
I don't know what kind of a practical joke this is, young man, but it's not funny. You made me miss my train, and I don't even have a nephew.
No, Mother, don't be upsetting yourself.
Don't you now, me, young man. Just get me on a train. Any train headed south will do.
Drake was getting ready for trouble. If the cops couldn't see it, I could. His hand was under his Afghan, and I knew the least it could be holding was a fistful of brass knuckles, but probably more. He was getting ready to make a run for it. I wasn't taking any chances. I edged my way through the crowd, up behind the wheelchair, and spun it around, and hit what looked like somebody's grandmother a beautiful shot in the whiskers.
He hit the old lady.
I got him.
Now, wait a minute, officer. You don't understand.
Don't understand, don't I? Hit an old lady, will you?
He's not an old lady.
Trouble you want, you scoundrel. Here, maybe this will quiet you down.
Johnny!
Hiya, Chickie.
Oh, that bandage. What's the matter with your head?
No brains. Where's the general?
Oh, when he found out you saved American Pioneer $30,000, he decided to take the morning off and celebrate. He's out playing golf.
Oh, great. To celebrate my getting hit on the head with police clubs, he goes out and swings golf clubs.
Oh, Johnny, I was sort of
Now,
hoping
don't
that...
worry, Chickie. I've still got enough energy left for nightclubs. You want to help me with this expense account? I'll get it out of the way.
Oh, that's all that stands between us.
Uh-huh. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, American Pioneer Life Insurance Company. First, the police held me and let Granny Drake go to the hospital, where they learned the truth. Then they let me go to the hospital and transferred Barton Drake to the pokey, where he was soon joined by his lady-in-waiting, Mrs. Drake. Expense account item 11. Something I almost forgot. $500. Canned goods. For the man who got me off the rocks on Slate Island, Mr. Fred Kindly. Even if he did rob me, I didn't feel like robbing him. The only thing I did do was remove all the labels from the $500 worth of canned goods. I'm sure that this will see to it that Mr. Kindly had some very unbalanced meals, because I happen to know that there's no difference in the sound of canned tomatoes and canned peaches when you shake the can. Expense account total, $1,482.63. Yours, truly, Johnny Dollar.
At last, mankind is facing up to one of its most feared diseases, cancer. Research scientists are working tirelessly, exploring every avenue that might lead to new treatments, new cures, and new insight into the causes of the disease. At the same time, the American Cancer Society is working to keep the public informed of all the progress that has been made, trying to reach everyone with the message that the sooner a diagnosis is made, the better the chances of cure. Together, this public education and research attack should bring great progress in the control of cancer. But both phases of this program are costly. Realizing you are giving to a fight against a disease that could menace you, give generously to the American Cancer Society's drive for funds this year. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Charles Russell as Johnny. Our music is composed and conducted by Leith Stevens. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is written by Paul Dudley and Gil Dowd, and is produced and directed by Richard Sandville for CBS, where 99 million people gather every week, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. I have to say, the Smiling Jackaroos, that may have been one of the more puerile ruses I've heard a detective pull, but it worked out okay until he got knocked cold. You got to be more prepared when you're going after a dangerous figure like Barton Drake. But we will resume next week with a show in July. Now we go to our mailbox at box13 at greatdetectives.net. Martin wanted to write for a couple of reasons. One, so that I can say I've written to Box 13, so I could tell you that I love the show and the format. Though there are only a few episodes I haven't already heard thus far, the information you give and the format is good enough to keep me subscribed. I like that each detective has his own day. I haven't seen this bit before. Let me ask, will you ever play some Sam Spade? Again, you would be hard-pressed to find something I haven't heard of, Spade or Dollar, but I would love to hear more history behind the shows not available on the Internet Archive. Also, I would love for somebody to do a direct comparison of Decoder Ring Theater's Spade or Sherlock tribute back with the original shows. I don't know if that's technically legal, but I digress. Don't remove too many of the original commercials, as this is part of the entertaining quality of the shows. Great show, great format. Keep up the good work. All right, well, in answer to Sam Spade, I have to say we will definitely hear some Sam Spade. I saw, actually, the movie, The Maltese Falcon, just a few years ago. And you really, and I left with this really mixed feeling. On one hand, Bogart was just incredibly cool as Sam Spade. On the other hand, the character of Sam Spade, I don't know, was almost somebody described it as borderline sociopath. So we're doing each of these shows 1 week at a time, so it's kind of a question for me of, do I really want to deal with this guy week after week? But I've listened to several of the episodes, and I'm leaning more towards a yes eventually on Sam Spade Radio Show, because I think that they added a few more elements in to make it a character that could really stand up week after week and could be played fairly well. So I'm leaning towards a yes. You're definitely going to hear some Sam Spade within the next year. We're going to do a couple specials I think that people are definitely going to enjoy. So keep listening for that. Commercials, I definitely understand about not wanting to remove too many. There are some, particularly I've had the occasion of listening to some of the 1950s Johnny Dollar and late 50s. And what they did actually with those, they didn't have single sponsors, so they just packed those things with commercials. And they said, you'd have like 4 or 5 minutes, and now we go to a commercial. And now for Act 3. And now for Act 4. And I'm like, Act 4? This is a 30-minute radio show, about 22 minutes. This is a Shakespeare play. But I'll definitely appreciate some of them are pretty interesting. I think the Let George Do It commercials. And of course, a lot of our shows just don't have any commercials to remove or address. Box 13 and Pat Novak for Hire right now. But thanks so much for the letter, Martin. We will definitely keep that in mind. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, bringing you another episode of Box 13. If you got any comments on the show, send them my way, box13@greatdetectives.net. Also, please cast your vote for us over at Podcast Alley. Last month, we got up to number 48, so into the top 50. I encourage everybody, please cast your vote early in the month, particularly if you don't have a specific comment to make. That way, the show's able to move up the standings, and then if at the end of the month we don't get any votes the last day or two, then we go down. But we enjoy being in the top 50 a little while longer. But go over to podcastalley.greatdetectives.net and please cast your vote for us. It's much appreciated. Got a comment from Sean regarding my linking over to the Digital Deli, and he noted something that stood out, that they mentioned Alan Ladd bankrolled the production himself under his Mayfield Transcription Company. And he's right. He says there's a bunch of good info, but we knew he was a smart fellow anyway. Well, hosting the show and getting information, it's just a matter of searching around to find the right information. As to him actually bankrolling it is really interesting. I think that there were many reasons to do it. Financially, it made a whole lot of sense. Because radio is fairly easy to produce. Plus, this is Box 13's a 52-week production. So that means that a station, when they when they buy syndications, 52 weeks is pretty common because then you can go ahead and you can buy the whole block of shows for a year. And since these episodes were not necessarily dependent on one another, and there weren't two-parters, you could buy 13 episodes or 26 episodes. And so this show actually continued to be syndicated for many years, which is why it's been so hard to figure out when it first started. So there's there's some good financial in there. It really promoted Ladd as an actor. Playing in pictures, you really only got to be in front of the audience, 3 or 4 times a year when one of your pictures was made. This put him in homes across America every week, and it really was the gift that would keep on giving for promoting him. Plus, I think it had to be a lot of fun to be able to do what you want to do and to really play a character. So really, this was a win-win, and he wasn't the only big Hollywood star to have his own show. Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall actually did their own syndicated show called Bold Venture. So it was a pretty good way to actually connect with people at home. So, all right, well, we're going to get started in just a moment with this week's episode of Box 13. Before we do that, I want to encourage you, if you got web hosting needs, you need an extra domain, you need a new web host because the current one is acting up and you're not getting the support you need. Well, remember, the world's #1 web host, 1&1. Go to hosting.greatdetectives.net or click the 1&1 banner over at greatdetectives.net and get signed up for the same web hosting we use with unlimited bandwidth. All right, today's episode of Box 13, and I got is Foreign Correspondent. We're going to listen and we're going to come back.
Box 13, with the star of Paramount Pictures, Alan Ladd, as Dan Holliday.
Box 13, care of Star Times. They said my son was killed in a drunken brawl. I know he wasn't. He was a good boy. He was murdered. Why, I don't know. If you come to 733 Winship Avenue...
If you'll come to 733 Winship Avenue any time and listen to my story, I'll be grateful to you forever. Mrs. Catherine Daly. And that was the letter to Box 13. Just a few lines. But, brother, what those few lines led to. And now, back to Box 13. I get some funny letters through Box 13. Some don't mean a thing. Others are from people who answer all the ads. But this one from Mrs. Catherine Daly, it had a real ring to it. I get so I can spot the letters from cranks and curiosity hunters. They're full of big phrases. It's the simple ones that count, like Susie said.
Well, it's short, Mr. Holliday.
Uh-huh.
What are you going to do about it?
Well, what would you do, Susie?
Well...
You know, Susie, I don't know how you manage to get right to the point of things so quickly.
Oh, it's easy.
Okay, you talked me into it. I don't know what I'd do without you.
I try to make myself indisposable.
The word, Susie, is indispensable.
What's the difference?
None, I guess. All right, Susie, I'm on my way to 733 Winship Avenue. Mrs. Catherine Daly was a little woman, maybe about 50, 60. It was difficult to tell because gray hair was pushing hard against the brown. It was her eyes that got me. Maybe not too long ago they'd been able to smile. But now they were dead, lifeless. Something had been taken away from
from, well, inside. She led the way to a little living room, furnished cheaply but neatly. She sat down, pointed to a chair for me, and then...
Are you serious about that advertisement, Mr. Holliday?
Well, yes, I am, Mrs. Daly.
I haven't any money. That is not much. I can afford something, if it's not a whole lot.
Oh, now, look, Mrs. Daly, I'm a writer, and sometimes Box 13 leads me to a good plot. You see, I don't take money because I get paid very well for the stories I get. You see, I used to be a newspaper reporter.
Newspaper reporter?
Anything wrong with that, Mrs. Daly?
Arthur, my son, he was a reporter.
Oh? What paper?
The Evening Record.
Your letter said that your son was killed.
He was. They said he was drunk, that he got into a fight in a cheap saloon. Arthur was never drunk in his life, and he hated fighting.
That his picture on the table?
Yes.
In uniform. That's the Distinguished Service Cross, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, Mrs. Daly, start from the beginning. Tell me how you want me to help.
I'm sure Arthur was murdered.
Murder's a tough word, Mrs. Daly. Tough to say and tough to prove.
But for a week before he was killed, he kept telling me that we could get out of this house soon, that he was going to make a name as a reporter.
But he didn't tell you why?
No. Then, the night he was killed, he got a phone call.
From whom?
I don't know. He hurried out, and the next time I saw him was when they asked me to come down and identify him.
That's as much as you can tell me.
It's every word.
Mrs. Daly, this may sound brutal, but your son's dead now. Why would you rather have it said he was murdered?
I want to show everyone he couldn't have died in that cheap, shoddy way.
Well, that was that. I believed her. Maybe it was the way she talked. Maybe it was her eyes. I don't know. Anyway, I left her house with nothing to go on but what she had told me, and that was little enough. Just that he was on to something would make a name for him as a reporter. Anyway, I went to see what Lieutenant Kling knew about it.
About what, Holiday?
About the kid that got killed in the saloon brawl.
Well, that's what the records show.
They show anything else?
No, they don't.
You know, I like you.
Thanks. You can have the next dance.
I'm serious.
Okay, so you're serious. What about?
You're not satisfied with the Daly case either.
What makes you think I'm not?
Just the way you talk. You don't believe it's right.
I believe what the witnesses in that dive said. The Daly kid got drunk. Somebody said something to the girl he was with. Nothing bad, but Daly got mad and started swinging.
And?
Then he ended up in the red.
You didn't arrest anybody?
Look, we get a dozen calls a night from down at the Hill places like that. Somebody's always getting pushed around, roughed up, killed. Some of the things don't even hit the newspapers. Run-of-the-mill stuff.
Sure. But look, Kling, what kind of guys get killed in places like that? Bums, winos, characters who hang out in those joints. But not a kid like Daly. And you're an honest cop.
What was that crack for?
For a compliment. The Daly thing bothers you because you know as well as I do that something's wrong about it.
Then you tell me.
I'll try. Later.
Now, look, Holiday, I'm not on the case anymore. Homicide's got enough to do without running down a fight in a saloon. But,
But what?
I don't like it, you're right.
I knew I liked you.
Okay, I'll marry you in the morning. The place you want is 183 River Street.
Oh, nice neighborhood.
Right. The cops go in quartets down there.
Thanks. See you later.
And for the love of Mike, don't end up in the meat wagon like Daly did.
Kling was right. It wasn't a neighborhood to raise kids or anything else. And the place I wanted was called the Riverview. Fancy name. Oh, a great place. I stepped over a couple of boarders spending the night on the doorstep and walked inside. There was a tinny piano played by a guy mechanically banging out a tune that its own composer wouldn't have recognized. The bar was set at the back facing the door. I went over to it. The bartender took a long, good look at me. I must have looked strange. I was wearing a necktie and a shirt. He walked over.
Yeah? What's with, bud?
How are you?
Awful. You?
Practically dead.
Okay. Now that we know each other, what's on your mind?
What do you got to drink?
Arsenic? Want some?
Straight. Water on the side.
Funny man, ain't you?
Sure.
Look, what do you want?
A drink, maybe?
No, you don't. That suit you got on costs maybe $150. The tie, $5. Any cookie comes in here dressed like you don't want a drink.
All right. You win.
Swell. Slumming, huh?
No, looking.
For what?
Last week there was a fight in here. A kid got killed. Arthur Daly.
I didn't see nothing. My back was turned.
Did you ever see the girl who was with Daly?
I told you I didn't see nothing.
Oh. All through the fight, you just kept your back turned.
Yeah, I hate fights. Can't stand the sight of blood.
That what you told the police?
Same thing.
Who were the witnesses?
Look, when a fight starts in here, there ain't no witnesses. Everybody's blind.
That makes it easy.
You a friend of this Daly character?
Yeah, a good friend.
Uh-huh. I still don't know nothing. Now blow, mister. Out. Get it out.
He knew something, all right. But he was clammed up tight. I left and walked up the street. I was close to the spot where I'd parked my car when I heard something. I stopped. Somebody was tailing me, following me from the saloon. Okay, somebody didn't like me nosing around. I walked past my car. Just ahead of me was an alley, and pulling out of the alley was a truck. I walked a little faster. I got to the alley, skirted around back of the truck so that my trailer would lose me for a couple of seconds. Then I stepped inside a doorway. It was dark. The truck pulled away. I waited. Then I heard the steps. He didn't know where I'd gone. But if he was going to pick me up again, he'd have to pass the doorway where I waited for him.
Come here. Oh, let go. You hurt me.
Shut up.
Oh, please, mister. I ain't no crook. I wasn't going to put this thing on you.
What's the idea of tailing me?
I heard you talking to the barkeep back there. I wanted to talk to you, honest, that's all.
You could have caught up with me before this.
Gee, mister, I didn't want anybody to see me, honest.
All right, talk.
Oh. You want to know something, huh?
Come on. What do you want to say?
Well, honest, I might get in trouble. Look, I got to know I'll get something out of this, eh?
Spill what you've got, and we'll see how much it's worth.
Maybe a $5?
Maybe. Go on, talk.
Look, I could get in bad trouble.
You are right now.
Oh, all right. All right, make it a $5.
What do you know about Arthur Daly?
I saw the fight. I saw the whole thing.
Did you tell the police?
Me? I don't get nothing to do with the cops.
All right, tell me.
This guy that was bumped, he didn't start the fight.
Who did?
A pug. Ex-pug named Billy Connor. The Daly guy didn't have nothing to do with starting it. It was a frame.
Was Daly drunk?
No, he had one drink. The girl slipped something in it. I saw her. She was a good looker, so I was watching her.
Do you know her?
Me? Me know a dame like that? Nah.
All right, well, here's your $5. Now, keep your mouth shut, understand?
Oh, sure. Maybe you'd like to know something else, huh?
What?
Oh, mister, ought to be worth something.
All right, here.
Oh, thanks. You ain't been out of the joint down the street more than a couple of seconds when the barkeep goes to the phone.
So?
I heard him tell somebody that you was nosing around. Mister, something tells me that you're in bad trouble right now.
And now, back to Box 13 with Alan Ladd as Dan Holliday.
Well, I had a few facts now. First, Daly knew something that might have got him killed. Second, the girl who was with him put something in his drink so he'd look drunk. Third, an ex-pug named Billy Connor started the fight. Why? The answer to that would put me on first base. So I asked around a little and found out that Billy Connor, a third-rate fighter down at the Heels, suddenly came into money. And right after the fight in the saloon, I found him in a second-rate nightclub.
You the guy that wants to see me?
If you're Billy Connor, I'm the guy.
Who are you?
Knowing that won't make it any prettier.
You're a smart boy, huh?
Maybe. But you're not acting smart.
What? What are you talking about?
You're making too much splash, Connor. The boss doesn't like it. People might start asking questions about the money. The money you got for killing Daly.
Me? Oh, no, I just started the fight. Then I ducked. Somebody else banged his head for him, not me.
Ah, that's the way it was, huh?
Sure, you know. Who are you, anyway?
Forget it, Connor.
Wait a minute, fella. Why'd you say that's the way it was? Didn't you know?
Sure I knew.
You ain't from them.
From whom?
You dirty sneak. You a copper?
Maybe. Think it over, Connor. Hard. I left him standing there with his mouth open. I thought I'd found out what I wanted to know. But Kling told me...
Doesn't mean a thing. You can't prove anything, Holiday.
What if I get proof?
How?
You've got the name and address of the girl Daly was with the night he was killed.
And you want him, is that it? You could get hurt.
Meaning you won't give me the girl's name?
Meaning that if I do, you're on your own.
I'll take that chance. Do I get a name and address?
Eileen Simmons, 4674 Roberts Drive. And I hope you get more out of her than we did.
I hope so, too. I didn't like walking up a blind alley with murder at my back and maybe in front of me. I got to the girl's home, a boarding house in a shabby section, and took a look at the mailboxes downstairs. While I was walking up to her flat, something tingled the back of my neck. Something that screamed a warning. I got to her flat. She didn't answer. Then I smelled it. Gas. I stooped down, and one look at the crack between the door and the sill was enough. It was stuffed with newspapers. There was only one thing to do. Eileen Simmons wasn't going to talk to anybody. The room was heavy with gas. The window I broke let in some air. Scared faces stared into the door. It smashed open, then I yelled at them.
You call the police. Ask for Lieutenant Kling. Go on, hurry.
I took a quick look around before I left. In one closet was a fur coat. And from what I knew about fur, this one took money to buy. It had her initials embroidered in the lining. But it didn't fit with the cheap flat. Well, I thought it was about time to make a trip to the Evening Record where Daly worked as a reporter. Some of the boys knew me, so it was easy to get to talk to Daly's editor.
I don't know, Holiday. All I know is that Daly promised me a big story. Something he was working on.
Now, look, Charlie. Any idea what it was?
None. The kid was close-mouthed.
Oh, but you must have some idea. Didn't he give you any hint?
Just that it was big and would blow off the top of the building when we printed it.
How long did he work for you?
Oh, about 6 months, no more.
What big assignments did you give him?
None. Routine stuff. He didn't have enough experience. Just out of journalism college when the war broke. Mm-hmm. Went through it. Then served at the war trials in Germany.
And in the 6 months with you, there wasn't anything important enough to get him killed, huh?
No, there wasn't. Oh, let's see. We sent him on a routine assignment to San Carlito and...
San Carlito? What's that?
Just one of those little islands in the West Indies. The paper's doing a series on Latin American neighbors, and we...
Anything there that might have been the big story?
You mean what he was talking about?
Yeah, that's it. How long after he got back did he begin to talk about the something big?
Hey, just about the same day he walked in here.
Where's his desk?
Just outside this office.
Oh. All his stuff in there?
Most of it. We were going to send it to his mother, but, well, you know how things are. It was too soon. We figured we'd wait.
Come on, let's take a look.
Just the usual stuff.
What are these photographs?
Never saw them before.
Full face, profiles of men. You know them?
Not from Adam.
Oh, Charlie, can I have these?
Well, I don't know, Holiday.
Just one ex-newspaper man to an editor. Come on, let me have them.
Okay. I didn't see you take them.
Thanks. Now, mind if I go through the rest of your stuff?
No, help yourself. I'll be at my desk.
Right. I went through Daly's papers. There was one little notebook with an entry in it that read, got to be careful, never be alone. They won't dare make a try for me unless I'm alone. I've got proof on film, photos of the men I recognize. Okay, so Daly's notebook gave me another lead. But where to? Well, maybe Daly's mother would know. I looked at my watch, but it was after midnight, so I figured it was too late to see her, and I decided to wait until morning. I wish I'd have gone right then and there. The next morning, I went to see Daly's mother, and I found her in the middle of an excited bunch of neighbors. When I got her alone, she told me what was up.
There were burglars. They ransacked Arthur's room.
Well, let's take a look.
But there's nothing missing.
Well, let's look anyway.
They went through all the drawers.
You didn't hear them?
No, I slept right through it.
Uh-huh. Mrs. Daly, what could they have wanted?
I don't know. There's nothing of value here.
Look, when Arthur came back from San Carlito, did he bring anything with him?
Why, I don't think so.
A camera, maybe?
His own, but he took that with him when he went.
Now think hard, Mrs. Daly. Did he take any film out of that camera when he got back?
I think he did. Yes, I remember. He hurried out with some film to have it developed.
Where is it?
I don't know.
Did he get it back from the shop where he took it?
I don't think so. I think he'd have shown them to me if he had.
And the roll of film he took out of his camera is still in the shop. It must be. Mrs. Daly, we've got to find a check for that film. The kind you get when you leave film to be developed. Come on, let's look. We looked and looked and looked. No check. Began to seem as though whoever ransacked the room found the check, and if he had, well, the thing was over. After half an hour, we gave up. But there was still one more thing to find out. Mrs. Daly, would you mind taking a look at these photographs? Do you know any of these men?
Why, I'm not sure. They look familiar, but... His scrapbook, the one he brought back from the war. There are pictures like those in the scrapbook.
Well, show it to me, will you?
It's in my room, right next door. Here it is.
Here they are, the pictures.
But I don't see...
I think I do. But I'm afraid to believe it. Look, Mrs. Daly, whatever you do, stay with your neighbors. Don't be alone for a minute. I left the house, and the idea I had was buzzing around inside my head. If I was right, then the whole thing was fantastic. But the pieces began to fit together. Maybe I was thinking too hard. I didn't see the big black car that turned down the corner. I didn't see it until I was almost staring between its headlights. I jumped back and up, and the fenders of the car took the skin off my legs, and the car roared away. That big black buggy had my name for a license plate. It would have looked just like an accident. But it told me something. That whoever was doing the dirty work didn't have the check for the film. Because the proof of what Daly knew was on that film. And if Mr. Accident Maker had it, he wouldn't have risked another accident. I called Kling, got him on the phone.
What do you want me to do?
Check every photo shop in the city for a roll of film mailed just before Daly was killed.
How do you know he mailed it?
Because he wouldn't have been fool enough to take it to a photo shop. He knew they were tailing him, waiting to grab that film. So he mailed it, with a note that he had called for.
Okay, I'll pick up the film, if I can find it.
Oh, no, Kling, don't pick it up, please.
But you just said you
Kling,
want...
tell me where it is, call my office, and I'll pick it up.
Look, you're asking for a crepe wreath in your door. If those babies are what you say, they'll cut you in little pieces.
You want them, don't you?
Sure, but I don't...
The only way to get them is to make them come after that film. And they won't call it headquarters for it, Kling. But they will try to get it from me. I waited. Finally, Kling gave me the word. I picked up the film and printed the little finishing shop. Kling had given orders that I was to have it. I got in my car, looked in the rear vision mirror, and saw a big black sedan pull in behind me. This was it. I couldn't spot Kling, and the squad car he said would be handy. Maybe something held it up. I didn't know. I got to my apartment. The sedan pulled up behind me and parked. I walked up to my apartment, went over to the window, and saw a man get out of the sedan. He walked slowly and disappeared into my apartment building. I sat down with the film and prints burning a hole in my pocket. Then... Who is it?
Mr. Holliday, I'd like to talk to you.
I took one more look out of the window. The street was empty except for the sedan. No squad car, no Kling. Brother, if ever I wanted to see that big guy, it was now. I walked to the door.
Mr. Holliday?
Uh-huh. Who are you?
My name is, we'll say Stephen.
Okay, you're Mr. Stephen. So what?
I shall be brief. You have a roll of film and some prints. I am a camera enthusiast. I shall pay you a good price for the film.
How much?
You're going to be reasonable. Huh? That's fine. Shall we say 10,000?
That's big money for a strip of celluloid.
I am very enthusiastic about photography.
You know, I like pictures myself. Especially pictures of some nice little Nazis who got out of Germany with a lot of money.
Oh? You guessed, huh?
Yeah, but Daly wasn't guessing when he recognized them in San Carlito. He wasn't guessing that San Carlito's a little island with lots of deserted coastline. Easy to land on.
Yes, very handy.
And they paid well to escape the trials in Nuremberg.
You just talked yourself out of $10,000.
Oh, now that's very funny. You would have killed me anyway, as you killed Daly to keep him from spreading the story.
You're so right. Now, Mr. Holliday.
Oh, that gun didn't look nice. He had it right at my head. I sat still. Stephen came slowly toward me. The black hole in the barrel of his gun looked like the business end of a cannon. Then...
Get the floor, Holliday, down!
Kling, at this particular minute, you're the most beautiful thing in the world.
Then what happened, Mr. Holliday?
Well, at that moment, Susie, Lieutenant Kling landed and took over.
Sorry I drew it so close, Holliday, but I had to let Stephen talk a while.
Yeah. But by the way, where was that squad car?
Well, there wasn't any. The squad car would have scared Stephen away. I had to make it look safe. The boys and I were right next door. Had been for an hour.
Now, he tells me.
It's up to the Federals now. We're clean on this end.
Gee, I sure... Oh, Mr. Holliday, you might have been killed.
Oh, it's okay now, Susie. It's all over.
But you might have been killed. And I like this job so much. What'd I say?
Very funny, Kling. Nothing, Susie, nothing. Good night.
Next week, same time, Alan Ladd stars as Dan Holliday in Box 13. Alan Ladd appears through the courtesy of Paramount Pictures and may currently be seen in Wild Harvest. Box 13 is directed by Richard Sandville, with original story by Russell Hughes, and original music composed and conducted by Rudy Schrager. The part of Susie is played by Sylvia Picker, and Lieutenant Kling by Edmund MacDonald. This is a Mayfair production.
Welcome back. The episode, Foreign Correspondent, we just heard, is often known as, and is most popularly shown in on most log sites as suicide or murder. Dennis at the Digital Deli actually found a old newspaper that had the title of the show as Foreign Correspondent. And that may not have been the best title in the world, but it makes a lot more sense than suicide or murder, since there was never really, as far as I could tell, any thought that he might have committed suicide. And this is, of course, being as it was a post-war episode. it really, I think, this is one plot you see a lot in old-time radio, where it'll involve missing Nazis. And, of course, this continued to be a trend, but during the old-time radio era, that was always a strong possibility, that you would be dealing with missing Nazis. We also get a clue that this was actually, this particular, because I think the one thing they would have to change is they re-syndicated the show, or maybe it's just short-sightedness, was they announced the picture that Alan Ladd could be seen in. So this, and the picture that they announced was actually out in September of 47. So it would have to have been made, this particular transcription would have to have been made around then. I do wonder if other, like if you get into the 50s, if you, because like I said, this was syndicated multiple times on multiple stations, whether they actually were able to change the title of the movie, or if this was kind of a goof, where they didn't think about, well, gee, mentioning the movie that he's currently starring in, he might not be starring in it 4 years from now. In terms of the episode itself, this one was, I think, a little bit of an off episode. There were a couple. Now, first of all, it should be said, this episode, the beginning, of all the Box 13s we've done, the beginning most reminded me of Let George Do It. But the one thing, there was two things I didn't like. One was basically we went from no information at all, we had no clue what was going on, to basically everything just falls into our laps. And I tend to like a little bit more progress towards the solution. We didn't even meet the villain until the last, 3 or 4 minutes of the program? And I like to have some suspects. The other thing was just the way everybody was giving Dan Holliday some information. The lieutenant and the newspaper editor, oh, sure. Particularly the lieutenant, because he's always concerned about Holliday getting his nose into police business, and here he's putting him in there, putting his life kind of on the line by giving this information. But every show has its off episodes, and I think we'll definitely have a better episode next week. I do want to share one more comment on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. John Donnelly says, great show, keep up the great work. Thank you very much. And again, I encourage you to cast your vote at podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. This is your host, Adam Graham, bringing you an episode of Pat Novak for Hire. Before we get started, I want to encourage everybody to please cast their vote for the show on Podcast Alley once a month over at podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. While comments are appreciated, they're not required. But you really helped last month. Thanks again. And also thanks to everybody who filled out our survey at survey.greatdetectives.net. We just sent an email to a potential show sponsor, and the data I used was the data that you provided by filling out the survey. So, if you've not filled out the survey yet, and I think we've only got 45 in, please go to survey.greatdetectives.net and fill out our listener survey. We got some comments. First, we'll start off with Podcast Alley. Very good podcast, especially like Pat Novak. Thank you very much. We're also, I should mention, we're starting a Facebook page for the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio, separate from the Dragnet page. So if you want to become a fan, just go to facebook.greatdetectives.net, facebook.greatdetectives.net. On the Dragnet page, where we have been posting the episodes, got this comment on a Pat Novak episode from Zachariah, who writes, Pat is like a boiled peanut that had ripened just too long. Oh, wait, he's rubbing off on me. Thanks so much for the comments. And by the way, thanks to Andrew Rhines for setting us up with a Facebook page. I think that it's about the right time to do it. All right, we're going to get into today's episode, Rita Malloy, in just a moment. But before we do, I want to remind you, as you plan your trips in the new year, remember this name, Johnny Dollar Air. JohnnyDollarAir.com. That connects you to Priceline, where you can search for the best deals on hotels, airlines, rental cars, and even more. Plus, you can help support great old time radio. Just remember the name, JohnnyDollarAir.com. But without any further ado, we're going to get into Rita Malloy.
Pat Novak, for hire.
Sure. I'm Pat Novak. For hire. That's what the sign out in front of my office says. Pat Novak for hire. Down on the waterfront in San Francisco, billing doesn't mean much. Everybody's got the same act. They're all out to turn a fast buck, and when you're in business down here, everything but murder is a parlor trick. Once in a while, your eyelids get sore from winking it too much, but it's a living. You get to meet the best people in town. There's only one hooker. You're liable to wake up some morning dead. Because around the waterfront, you don't need a union card for trouble. It sneaks up and paws you like a wet ghost. I found that out when I met Bruno's Weiss. I closed up early Tuesday night, and I went home to catch up on last month's sleep. I don't know how long I was in bed. Must have been about 11 when I woke up. The room was dark and as stale as last year's Christmas candy. I had the goofy feeling that somebody was in the room with me. Somebody was sitting on my bed. Either that or the landlord had put in an echo. I listened again.
Hello, Novak.
You're mixed up, friend. I pay the rent here.
Get your hands away from the light, Novak. Just be a good boy and you can collect your old age pension.
Now, look, I'm not crazy about waking up a stranger sitting on my bed, especially if they got baritone voices. Now, say your piece and beat it.
Don't get jumpy, mister. When your eyes get used to the dark, you're going to see a gun about a foot away from your nostrils. I want the keys to your boat, Novak.
Get them in the morning at $25 a smell.
I want them now. Just tell me where they are. I'll do the rest.
Don't get big-hearted.
I don't want chatter and cocktails. I want those keys. Unless you want your face to look like a rump roast, you'll start talking.
The keys are in the bottom drawer of the desk.
That's the boy. Gonna borrow your boat a while. You get it back by noon tomorrow. There's the boat keys.
2 of them are. The rest open the front door of the U.S. Mint.
Sorry I can't stay around, Novak. You sound like a card. Sleep tight, Novak. This will have to do for a lullaby.
He didn't even give me time to pick a dream. I stretched out on the floor as dead as a Philadelphia nightclub. I don't know how long I stayed out of the ball game. Must have been a couple of hours, because when the phone rang, it was past midnight. I reached over to pick it up, but my hands were as steady as a maple leaf in a hurricane, and my head was big enough to sell by the pound. I finally found it in the dark and started talking. Hello?
Hello, Novak. This is Joe Powers down at Pier 19. You awake?
Sure.
Hey, you sound groggy.
No, it's a sedative. What's on your mind?
One of your boats just drifted in. Guess what?
I don't have to. It's smashed up and you want to offer me $50 salvage.
Hey, that's right, Novak. You're psychic.
I'm a patsy, you mean?
Some gunsel borrowed the boat a couple of hours ago. Came in here, told me a bedtime story, and took the keys.
Well, you better hop right down here.
It'll keep, Joe.
No, it won't. Hurry up or you'll run a dead heat with homicide. There's a dead guy in the boat.
Well, it must be my playmate.
I don't know. He didn't say. But you better grab a cab and get on down here. There's going to be a lot of questions.
Sure, if you meet any good answers, save a couple for me. From now on, there was no waste motion. I knew that. If homicide was on the case, that meant Inspector Hellman. He's a real nice guy, if you like his type. I had to do something soon. If I didn't, I'd have about as much chance as a pound of liver at a cat show. So I jumped into some clothes, and I was starting out of the apartment when I missed my wallet. The keys were attached, and that gunsel had taken the whole works. I began to get mad. For $70, you can get a Scotch hangover instead of the kind I had. And if you're lucky, a couple of good memories. So when I drew up at Pier 19, it didn't look like the sunny side of the street. Joe Powers was waiting for me.
You got the first round, Patsy. Homicide hasn't showed yet.
I'm full of luck tonight. Where's the boat?
Oh, right over here.
Lots of fog tonight, huh, Joe?
You're walking on it. Well, there it is. How's your insurance, Patsy?
All right, except I'm not carrying any on that dead guy. Who is he, Joe?
I don't know. He's your passenger. You roll him.
All right, give me a hand. No, push him over on the other side, will you, so I can get in the pocket?
He's the same guy that took the keys?
I don't know. If he is, he never looked lovelier. There's nothing in this pocket. This one's empty except for a comb. He sure spent my $70 in a hurry. Must have thrown in the wallet for a nightcap.
No identification.
We should have bought a scorecard.
Hey, here on the floor. It's a key.
Let me see that, Joe. Room 425, Royal Arms Hotel.
Where is it?
That's a dive down on Church Street. Well, say hello to homicide for me.
Oh, you're not bright tonight, Novak.
Well, I'm not going to stay around here. They'll pick me up faster than a gin fizz.
Well, what am I going to tell them?
Anything you like, Joe. Shift into freewheeling and let them follow, but I'm not going to hang around for a pinch. I'm one boat and $70 short.
Tell it to homicide.
I don't like manual labor that much. See you later. I started for the Royal Arms Hotel. And on the way, I picked up the only honest guy I know. A bottle baby by the name of Jocko Madigan. He's a good man, except he thinks it's a waste of the taxpayers' money to put alcohol in torpedoes. I hauled him out of the Hunt Room bar, and we walked down the street to the Royal Arms Hotel. It was the perfect spot for a missionary. The lobby looked like the first act of Rain. There was a pinball machine in one corner, a couple of last year's girls in this year's slacks, and a bleary-eyed little night clerk. He looked like a well-groomed laundry bag, and he gave us the fisheye as we started upstairs. Room 425 was down at the end of the hall. Jocko didn't care if we ever got there.
Patsy, we have no business coming up here.
We're in search of my $70.
Exactly. I view you as my penance, Patsy, the sackcloth for a misspent life.
If you can shake off that buzz, you'll find out I'm in trouble.
You'll always be in trouble because you're a patsy, and you're dangerous because you move in the twilight zone between good and evil without any predisposition toward either one.
Yeah, all right. Here it is. 425. Nobody home. Let's go in.
It's housebreaking.
Now, look, Jocko, I want my $70. I'm going in.
Patsy, sometimes you terrify me. I think you'd pick the lock to the gates of heaven.
I would if they had my $70. Come on. The guy's dead down in my boat. We won't hurt his feelings. We'll just nose around a minute and get up. It was a pretty room if you like dead women on your rugs. She was stretched out in a pale yellow dressing gown, as quiet as an April morning and twice as pretty. A dull red scar ran across her temple where somebody had laid an iron shovel. She didn't belong in this hotel because she was wearing a necklace and a bracelet that left a gap in somebody's pocket. And from the ringside, she looked all right. Jocko noticed it, too.
She has lots of character.
Yeah, but where's my $70?
She's a nightclub dancer.
How do you know?
Her picture's plastered all over the wall there. She's the headliner at El Palateo, Miss Rita Malloy.
Wonder who the guy on the desk is there.
Boyfriend, probably. Let's get out of here, Patsy.
Oh, wait a minute. How about that dead guy in the boat? Where does he fit in?
I'll listen to that one, Novak.
Oh, Hellman.
What happened to the girl? She die laughing at you?
It's Rita Malloy, a piece of change from the El Palateo.
Uh-huh. Got a hat, Novak?
No.
Then you're all ready. Come on.
Oh, get your brain lined up and look at her. She's been dead a couple of hours.
You're still eligible, Novak. On your way down, you can explain that guy at Pier 19.
Oh, you can't be that dumb, Hellman.
I'm smart enough to see you peeking over the 8-ball. You look like a 10-to-1 shot, Novak, and I got my money on you all the way.
If you're going to make this thing add up, you can't do it alone.
I'll try.
Well, that's what Firpo said. So I don't look good on this one. I'll look worse if I leave it up to you. You couldn't find a hangnail if you knew what hand it was on.
You got 24 hours, Novak. I'm going to piece things together, and then I'm going to make a pinch. Pick out a soft spot.
Yeah?
Yeah. Stay near the phone. If it rings and a man answers, that'll be homicide. Good night.
Right. I looked like a sure bet for the Rotogravure section. I was beginning to run out of silver linings, and I knew it. The guy in the boat was still a stranger, and Rita Malloy was still dead. I was sitting in the middle of a high-stake game with a pair of trays. When we left the hotel room, I had the funny feeling that there was something wrong back there. I didn't know what. I just knew there was something wrong, the way you feel when you pick up the wrong hat and put it on. The position of the body, those pictures on the desk, I didn't know, but there was one detail that didn't set right. Well, I told Jocko to hang around headquarters, and I started for the El Palateo. It was like all the rest. A little melancholy bar on Mason. A fire trap with a cover charge. The decor looked like early Franco. The floor show was on as I fought my way up to the bar. Excuse me, please. I'm sorry, lady. Can I get through here, please? How about a drink?
Your idea. What do you want?
Scotch.
Soda or water?
Water. You got a nice club here.
We like it. 80 cents.
Too bad about Rita Malloy.
Yeah.
You don't seem heartbroken about it.
I'm not a mother. 80 cents.
Anything wrong, Eddie?
No, boss. This guy's crying in his beer about Rita Malloy.
Oh. I'm Manny Ryan.
You own the club?
A piece of it.
My name's Novak. Call me Patsy at the moment. The police think I killed Rita Malloy.
When you go on trial, Mr. Novak?
I don't. That's why I came down here, to find out which one of your people killed her.
I see.
She was mixed up to her ears with some thick hoodlum.
You, Mr. Novak?
No, a guy right out of your set. He came rolling in with the tide this morning, playing rigor mortis all over my boat.
Look, Novak, you better go see someone else to tell your troubles to. I'm a busy man.
Yeah, well, so am I, getting out of a murder rap. You knew her, Ryan. In fact, I got an idea you knew her pretty well.
Let's not talk that way about the dead.
Your pictures splattered all over her apartment. Were you engaged to her?
That's one way of putting it.
You better have a big fat alibi ready for tonight. Homicide's going to think you killed her.
I'm betting on you for the finals, Novak. I don't need an alibi. She was a friend of mine.
That's why you need one. People just hate their enemies, but they kill their friends.
You better stay out of the public library, Patsy. You're not smart enough to understand epigrams.
I'm smart enough to find out where you were from 10 o'clock until midnight.
Go ahead. Circle around the club. But keep a drink in your hand. We run for profit.
I didn't get much out of the doorman. He wanted a first mortgage to talk, but one of the busboys opened up. He told me that Ryan and the girl had brawled the night before. Also, that Ryan left the club for about an hour tonight. Well, I put him on the list anyway. But it began to look more and more like a one-horse race. Well, I got one other lead. A clarinet player in the band wanted to harmonize with Rita Malloy, but there wasn't much else to go on. And then I spotted the gal who had taken Rita Malloy's job in the show. She was just finishing her number, and so I followed her back to her dressing room. When she opened the door, I got a nice warm feeling like a melted cheese sandwich, and I was looking around for a rope to hang on. She was pretty. And when she said hello, you knew it was time to send in the varsity.
Good evening.
For some people, you mind if I come in?
It's late in the season. I can't be choosy.
All right. I'm Pat Novak.
I'm Tony Drake. What do I do? Tremble?
Talk, mostly. Did you know Rita Malloy?
Around here, that was an occupational hazard.
The police think I killed her.
Did you?
No. When I got there, they were tearing down the goalposts.
Oh, that's too bad. I'd have been very grateful.
It's something I'd like to try.
Are you switching the topic, Mr. Novak, or have I been in the big city too long?
I just want to know who killed her. You got any ideas?
Nope.
How about your boss?
Maybe. She was getting a little frayed around the edges.
How's his temper?
No worse than a cobra's. He might have done it, but I doubt it.
Anybody else?
He was putting in a little overtime with a thug.
Not a big, porky guy with a deep voice?
I never saw him. I just heard that he was trying.
Must have been quite a line. Anybody else? How about that clarinet player?
No play. He was just a salmon swimming upstream.
I see. Well, do me a favor, will you, Tony?
All right. You only get one, so make it a good one.
They're tailoring me for a trip over the hill unless I show up with a fistful of answers. Now, can you give me a list of all of Rita Malloy's friends?
I can write them all down on a piece of confetti.
I mean, everybody close to her. The people around the club here, the people on the outside. I'll pick it up in a half hour at your apartment.
At my apartment?
Yeah, at your apartment.
All right, don't get sore. I was just inquiring, not complaining.
All right. One other thing, Angel.
Yes, Patsy?
Don't forget to put yourself on that list. Be seeing you. Well, it was good to get out of there. When she started walking towards you, you felt like a shovel full of scrap iron in a Pittsburgh blast furnace. Well, I called up Jocko at headquarters. He didn't seem to be worried about me. He was thirsty. The guy on the boat hadn't been identified yet. The coroner said he died of severe bruises and that Rita Malloy checked out with a fractured skull. I gave Jocko Tony Drake's number, and I started for her apartment. I couldn't have done better with Aladdin's lamp. She had the list and a bottle on hand. I went over the list with her, and then it turned out she had insomnia. The radio was turned down to room temperature. I was working on my fifth drink when the phone rang.
Oh, let it ring, Patsy.
Oh, I better get it, baby.
I think you're a sissy.
No, prison pallor wouldn't look good on me. Hello?
Patsy?
Yeah?
Are you busy?
Well, depends on your point of view. What's up?
I'm not tearing you away from that list of suspects.
Let's have it, Jocko.
They just identified the dead guy on your boat. His name is Bruno Swice. He's wanted in Miami, Florida. He's a hired gunman.
Good. Now jump over and see Paul Stangl at the Chronicle Morgue, huh?
I already have. There's no tie-up between Bruno Swice and Rita Malloy.
There's gotta be. Those two killings are tied up like ham and eggs.
Hellman just got a report from the Harbor Patrol. They found a buoy knocked out of place. They figure your boat did it and Bruno got killed in the crash.
What does that do to things?
Oh, it clarifies them enormously. This way, you're going to hang for only one murder. Good night, lover.
I knew Jocko was right. Hellman could rig me as long as he had only one case to work on. He's a single-celled animal, and this was just about big enough to fit into his brain. Well, I left Tony's apartment, and I walked over to the El Palateo. Must have been about 4 o'clock in the morning. It was still dark enough for me to kick in a back window without being seen. I headed straight for Manny Ryan's office, and I started going through his stuff. It was like trying to separate a ton of salt and sugar dumped in the same bin. I went through most of the drawers, and in the last one, I got a hold of something. I grabbed the phone on Ryan's desk, and I called Hellman. Well, I wasn't sure, but I figured he could try this one on for size anyway.
Police headquarters.
Give me Hellman and Homicide.
Yeah.
They must have put their best men on this trail because they found him inside a half hour.
Hello, Novak.
I'm in Manny Ryan's office. He owns the El Palateo. I just rifled his desk.
It's a minor offense for you.
I got a hold of last month's phone bill. Guess what?
It's too high.
The office put through 2 calls to Key West, Florida, the last part of this month.
4 o'clock. I'm barely interested. Go ahead.
Bruno's Weiss hired out as a gunman. San Francisco is a long way from home plate. That means somebody sent for him.
And you're trying to put the finger on Manny Ryan.
That's right. That silver frame you picked up at Rita Malloy's, take a look at the guy in it. That's her boyfriend, Manny Ryan.
We'll check on it. In the meantime, keep squirming, Novak. You look pretty.
Oh, you're smooth, Hellman.
Smart talk's not going to keep you out of the chair, Novak. Stay handy. We've only got a short extension cord.
Yeah, well... Hello, Hellman. Hello, Lupos? Frank, is Jocko Madigan there? Good. Put him on, huh? Hello, Jocko. Now, listen. I'm up at Manny Ryan's place. Yeah, that's right. I'm not sure, but I think that Ryan's... My head must have looked like a jackpot. Everybody in town was hitting it. I rolled over and played dead for about 5 hours. It feels better when you've had a dress rehearsal. I woke up in my apartment. The sun was streaming through the window and hit the bed. I looked like the muslin counter after a sale. It turned out I was the host and didn't know it. Jocko was sitting at the table having breakfast. The bottle was almost half shot.
Good morning. How's the other world?
All right, stop being funny and help me up, huh?
I am the victim of a common error. You don't like me because I'm not entertaining when I drink. You don't object to my drinking. You object to my lack of wit.
Oh, shut up, will you?
Well, it's discouraging to be condemned on moral principle when it's really a flaw in nature. By the way, I think they're going to arrest you for the murder of Rita Malloy.
What about Ryan?
I've recommended clemency.
All right, come on. What about Ryan?
You bungled it. By the time Hellman got to him, he had an alibi all framed. The calls to Key West could have been made by anybody in the club, and Ryan's covered for the time of the murder.
How about the others?
They look good, too. Your girlfriend, Tony Drake, was gone for a while the night of the murder. Hellman won't bite. She's just sitting there ready to spring an alibi.
That's right. With legs like that, she can dig up a cousin.
You better get worried, Patsy.
I am. The El Palateo is a dead-end street. I don't know where to go from there. That guy Bruno in the boat could help. There's some connection between Bruno's wife and Rita Malloy.
You're the only connection I can think of.
Yeah.
Hello, Novak. This is Hellman.
Yeah?
You were right about Bruno's wife and Rita Malloy. We just went through her safety deposit box.
I'll bet you handled the money.
She had a clipping on Bruno's wife from a Miami paper, 1937.
Go on.
Divorce action between Weiss and Miss Olga Pryor.
Well, did you look up Olga Pryor?
That's where we run out of gas. Nobody knew her. We have no description.
Well, how about Rita Malloy? Any dope on her before 1937?
I was going to ask you. You were in the room with her when she died, don't you know?
No, I don't.
I'm disappointed. I figured you'd know a little about her habits.
Huh?
You wrote the book, mister. I figured you for an answer.
Yeah, I got one. And you just gave it to me, Hellman.
Huh?
Meet me at the El Palateo in a half hour. Now, if you're a real good boy, I'll tell you who killed Rita Malloy.
Are you going to be there?
Yeah.
That's all I want to know, Novak.
Things were falling into place like a fixed roulette wheel. Right from the first, I knew that there was something goofy about the picture in Rita Malloy's hotel room. I wasn't sure. I just knew I had something in the back of my mind. I didn't tumble until Hellman tipped the mitt. And then everything was cakes and ale. I sent Jocko up to room 425 in the Royal Arms Hotel, and I told him to get a description of every dress in the closet. I checked at the desk, and I got the name of Rita Malloy's cleaners. I ducked over there, and I got a list of every dress that she turned in for 3 months. I met Jocko, and we compared the list of dresses. Well, it jibed fine, except for one thing. There was a missing white dress. It had been to the cleaners before. It wasn't there now, and it wasn't in that hotel room. Well, we went over to the El Palateo to find it. Jocko didn't want to buy the scheme at all.
Patsy, I protest the notion of breaking into a lady's dressing room.
Stop worrying, will you? She's not going to be there.
Then it's futile as well as immodest. Besides, how do you know Rita didn't throw away the dress?
I'll give you better than track odds on that one, Jocko. Here we are. Come on. Now, look, you take the closets and find that white dress. I'm going through the desk for grease paint.
You should be going through a woman's closet. It's more in the nature of things.
Just look, huh? There's enough grease paint here for the whole Iroquois tribe. Did you find anything?
Yes. What's this?
Just look for the white dress, Jocko. Hey, what's that in the corner?
Where?
Over here.
I don't see anything.
Well, down here, look, see?
Oh.
Well. That feels good, doesn't it, Jocko? Like a spell of perfect weather.
Same grease paint?
Well, it won't take us long to check. Here, you open a couple of these jars.
Don't forget your apron, Patsy.
Hello, Tony.
What are you doing?
Getting ready to build a fire under you? You're going to make nice smoke, too.
I liked you better when you were dumb, Patsy. You don't look good with a Ph.D.
Oh, put away the gun, baby. Remember, this is your second trip to the place.
Give me the dress, Patsy.
It won't fit.
I'll worry about that. Just toss it over by the door here.
I'll do better. I'll bring
Stay
it.
where you are, Patsy.
It's my ticket out, chum.
You're a good guy, Patsy. Stay out of my way.
It's your role, baby.
Patsy, please stay away from me.
Come on, give me that gun.
Patsy, please.
Give me that gun.
Sorry, Patsy. That's all I could do.
Yeah, sure. You want to take a look at her, Jocko?
Put her down on the floor.
Yeah. What do you say, Jocko?
No dice.
Well, you can't win them all, Tony.
You play too rough, Patsy.
You still got a good batting average, Novak.
Hello, Hellman. You better make a fast pinch.
She do it?
Yeah.
She got kind of clumsy in the last round, didn't she?
Not at all, Copper. They had me coming and going. When you're as far back as I am, they don't pick up the option.
Let's get out of here, Jocko. I'll check with you later, Hellman.
Be a good boy, Patsy. I'm going to miss you. You were getting to be my favorite hobby.
Yeah.
I don't know how you were on the distance stuff. But you were sure something on the sprints.
Yeah. Be nice to her, Copper. She could go in the mud herself. It was blackmail, of course. Tony was once married to Bruno's wife. Rita Malloy found out and started to squeeze Tony. Well, Tony wouldn't buy that, so she killed Rita Malloy in her hotel room. She made one mistake. I didn't tumble until Hellman mentioned a woman's habits. Then I knew what was wrong with that picture back in Malloy's hotel room. It hit me like a discordant note in music. Rita Malloy was lying on the floor in a dressing gown, but she was still wearing her bracelet and necklace. Well, when a woman undresses, she always takes her jewelry off first, and then she takes off her dress. Rita Malloy didn't do that, so I took a flyer and decided that somebody had taken the dress off her and put on a dressing gown. Why? Well, because there was something wrong with the dress. It pointed too much in one direction. Oh, it could be a lot of things, but probably grease paint. Tony called Bruno out here. He was supposed to use my boat to dump the body, and when he didn't make it, Tony got scared and lugged away the dress. My $70. Well, it would have looked better on a fixed fight. Well, Hellman asked only one question. How did I happen to know that when a woman undresses, she always takes off her jewelry first? I must have read it somewhere.
Radio Service has just brought you Pat Novak for Hire, starring Jack Webb. Pat Novak is produced by William P. Russo. Jocko Madigan is played by Tudor Owen. Inspector Hellman is played by Raymond Burr. Music was composed and conducted by Basil Adams. Be with us again next week when over most of these same stations we'll bring you Pat Novak for Hire. Pat Novak for Hire was previously released by ABC, the American Broadcasting Company, for listeners in the United States, and rebroadcast for our men and women overseas. This is the United States Armed Forces Radio Service, the voice of information and education.
Welcome back. This was a great episode. As I've listened to this series, I really felt that the first few episodes were not as good as the latter shows. Richard Breen really, I think, got into some fine form in these later episodes, and it kind of makes you wonder what would have been. I think one of the things that makes a great Pat Novak episode is when they break from the formula in a slight way. In this case, there were a couple ways. Obviously, Jocko Madigan showed up much earlier than he normally does. In addition to this, Pat Novak got into trouble just because he was lying in bed asleep. The end part, I thought, was a good guess, a lucky one. You know, it could have been that Rita Malloy may have just been one of those women who actually left her jewelry on after she changed into her dressing gown. But it was a good guess. Nice, intuitive detective work there that turned out pretty good. And I'd mentioned the idea of doing T-shirts based on the show. And I found one here that would be great for the cynic in your life. People just hate their enemies, but they kill their friends. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, bringing you another episode of Let George Do It. Got any comments on the show? Please feel free to send me an email to box13@greatdetectives.net. And please cast your vote for the show over at Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. Join our Facebook group, facebook.greatdetectives.net. And please fill out our survey, survey.greatdetectives.net. Well, I've got to say, I've actually been listening to quite a bit of Let George Do It recently. That's because I got, perhaps my favorite Christmas present was Radio Archive's Let George Do It set. And this is of recordings. I mentioned this a few weeks ago. These are recordings for a Harry Goodman syndicated version that was basically done taking episodes from what we listen to on this show, which is the Don Lee Mutual run. And this set, though, of shows that basically aired in Canada, these episodes, for the most part, are shows that are not in general circulation. So there were some absolutely wonderful episodes. The audio quality is mind-blowing. I got to be careful. Don't want to get too spoiled. I can be impressed by really great audio quality or really great video quality, but I'll settle for passable if I get to enjoy a great story. But the audio quality was just it's top-notch, and the stories were so great. I'm really glad Radio Archives uncovered it. I've been enjoying the set, the depth of the stories. Just really impressive stuff. I think basically this set, 15 of the 20 episodes they've got on there aren't in circulation. So I've had a lot of fun. There's no affiliate relationship or anything. Just letting you know, I've really enjoyed it. So, and I think I've got only 4 more episodes. I've got to find my way to getting volume 2. All right, well, we actually have an email regarding the last week's show. Leslie, who has emailed the show before, actually from Australia, her email came at an opportune time. I've actually, when I'm recording this, it's only like an hour and a half after I finished doing the Pat Novak for Hire episode you heard yesterday. But she sent me this email, and it came right while I was listening to this week's Let George Do It. And it was regarding something I said. The Speak for Yourself, John, which was something I didn't quite understand from one of the previous episodes that Brooksy said at the end of the show. I would think, and she says, I would think it refers to the story of John Alden, Miles Standish, and Priscilla. They all arrived on the Mayflower. Miles had fallen in love with Priscilla and asked John to speak to her on his behalf. Priscilla had ideas of her own in love with John, and so she told him to speak for yourself, John Alden. When George starts commenting about romance being in the air for the young couple, Brooksy is reminding him she is up for romance by telling him to speak for himself. Wow, thanks a lot, Leslie, for that insight. I had read Courtship of Miles Standish several years back, but it didn't click. And that they put that in there. I think that they were a little more up on their history back then than we are. Well, thanks so much for sharing, Leslie, and adding that insight. Much appreciated. All right, well, we're going to get into today's episode of Let George Do It in just a second. Before we do, I want to encourage you, if you're looking for a hosting solution, being it you want to start a website, or you want to move your website to a more reliable host, or if you just want to get a good deal on an extra domain, remember our host, 1&1, the world's #1 web host. We've had great service at great prices, and I strongly recommend them. Go to hosting.greatdetectives.net to get great deals on hosting and to support the great detectives of old time radio. We're going to get into today's episode, The Tunnel Project, here on the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio.
Standard of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invite you to Let George Do It. Another adventure of George Valentine.
Personal notice. Danger is my stock and trade. If you're up against something over your head and need help that's strictly confidential, you got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details.
Mr. Valentine, let's see if you're as good as your ad says. I am up against something that's over my head. A river. The river my company's trying to push a tunnel under. But we're getting nowhere fast. And I hate to think what the reason would be. If you figure you can help...
If you figure you can be of help, I assure you we won't haggle about price. It's signed, William Kane, President.
Kane and Bowers Tunnel Construction, huh?
Now, I wonder where I could find a diving suit with the new look.
No, seriously, Brooksy, you must mean the West End Tunnel, the one they're having all the trouble with breakthroughs and cave-ins.
I could drop in at the Globe department store.
Okay, Angel, okay. But this seems like a job for an engineer, not for me.
Well, there's still no harm in talking to the nice man who insists he's not going to haggle about price.
As long as you insist on being mercenary, let's get going.
Valentine, you don't know how much it means to a former sandhog like me to wind up building his own tunnel.
I think I can imagine, Mr. Kane.
He's like a kid with a chemistry set, suddenly finding out he's discovered the atomic bomb.
I realize this tunnel project's a pretty big thing, and you've had more than your share of hard luck.
Yeah, way more than my share.
What did you mean in your letter that you hate to think what the reason for these accidents might be?
Well?
I suppose I gotta tell you.
Oh, now look, Kane, if it comes that hard, maybe you want this letter back so we can forget the whole thing.
No, it's just that it's tough putting it into words.
Yeah?
Yeah. Me and my partner, Jim Bowers, we drove tunnel all over the world. Started as muckers, shoveling mud and slime. Got to be miners together, using dynamite and drills when you didn't even know what was going to happen next under the river. You'd think you'd get to know a guy after going through all that with him.
Well, let's be blunt and put it this way, Kane. You suspect your partner, Bowers, is holding up the works here, is that it?
Yeah, but I gotta be sure.
What makes you suspect him at all?
I found out that the company we outbid to get this job made Jim a big offer to come with them.
But if he's a partner here, what's the percentage for him in a deal like that?
Well, Jim's always resented that I'm better suited to run the front office up here while he has to work with the men.
Oh, I get it.
So if he could bunch up this job, and we lost it to the Cameron Construction Company, they'd take him in there as a big shot.
Well, you certainly must have talked this over with Mr. Bauer.
Yeah, I did, miss, and they said that you turned the camera and offer down flat. But how can I be sure? Now all these accidents.
With Bauer's always on the spot to make them happen, if that's what he wanted.
Frankly, Valentine, I don't even know how you can help me. Sandhogs are a clannish crowd. You can't go wandering around down that tunnel, snooping around.
Mr. Kane, suppose you let me give it some thought.
George.
Yeah, Brooksy.
How'd you like to buy a for instance?
Okay, Brooksy, I'll buy.
Well, for instance, if you were a reporter and I were a photographer, we could be doing a story for a national magazine. That would get us down into the tunnel to snoop.
Say, that might be an idea, that. Then you could look around. I'll tell Sanders to expect
Oh,
you.
now, wait a minute. Hey, look, Brooksy, that's a good for instance, all right. But this business of we...
Of course I meant we. Why do you think I came up with the idea?
Okay, you arrange it, Kane. I think we're going to take a crack at it.
Just how far down does this elevator go, Mr. Sanders?
About 30 feet, miss.
Oh, well, that's not too bad, is it, George?
Oh, no. That part of it's all right. I'm thinking of what happens later.
What are you so smug about? What do you know that I don't know?
Hey, you want to tell the lady what happens next, mister?
Well, miss, it's getting into the tunnel that you've got to worry about.
Oh?
There'll be about 40 pounds of pressure per square inch on you down there. That's why if we get to the bottom, you still got to sit a half hour in the manlock.
Manlock? What's that?
It's kind of a sealed-up room, miss. We keep shooting pressure into that while you just sit. That's so it ain't so bad for you when you get into tunnel. Get it?
I got it.
To put it more concisely, my sweet, unless they're very, very careful, the pressure of the river would come down on you and flatten you out like a jellyfish.
Oh, lovely thought.
Well, here we are. Hey, Charlie, come here. We got visitors. A reporter and a young lady to take pictures.
Oh, visitors, huh?
That's okay. Mr. Kane knows about it.
In that case, I'd better sit in the lock with them.
Yeah, you better warn the boys. Put their shirts on, Charlie. Ladies' Day.
Right here, folks.
Okay.
All right, step in.
Thank you.
Hey, looks like a bank vault.
Yeah, almost. Important thing is to seal it airtight. You'll see what I mean when I close this door.
George, what's that?
That's the air from the tunnel coming in through this valve, lady. When the pressure in here is the same as it is out there, that big door opens by itself. Then you're ready to go under the river.
Won't you sit down, Miss Brooks?
Yeah, it usually takes about a half hour.
Oh.
Just about a minute more now.
You all right, Brooksy?
I'm just swell. But my ears.
It's even worse coming out. You're in too much of a hurry. That's when you can get the chokes and the bends.
Nothing like having things to look forward to.
You'll have to put these little metal tags around your neck.
Huh?
What are these, Charlie?
All sandhogs wear them. It's in case you're found staggering around. Tells the cops not to throw you in with the drunks, but to rush you back here to this decompression chamber. They don't waste much time, you'll probably live.
Oh, goody.
Hey, you sound like an old sandhog yourself, Charlie. You can't stay away from tunnels, huh?
Old, Mr. Valentine? I'm just like Jack Benny. I'm still 38. I was the same age when I helped build the Holland Tunnel back east. Just got out here a few months ago. Well, that's that. There goes the door. It's okay for you to go into the tunnel now.
All right. Come on, Brooksy.
Oh, it's like the inside of a furnace in here.
But there's all this nice water to slush through.
God.
That ought to help keep cool things off.
George.
Yeah, you can still put your bank in there with Charlie.
Oh, no. I was just thinking of my nylon. Let's go.
Okay, everybody clear. We're blasting.
Blasting, George.
Go ahead, Harrigan.
All right, let us go.
That'll do it. Now we can go up to the other. Hey, where'd you two come from?
You Bowers?
Yeah, what are you doing down here? And with a girl to bring me more trouble.
Trouble?
Look, Mr. Kane said it was all right for me to do a story about the tunnel. The young lady is here to take the pictures.
Story? That all Kane's got to think of up there? I'd like to go up and tell him a few things.
Howard!
Hey, what's going on?
Howard! Break through at the tunnel head.
What?
Yes. At this time, the scaffolding came down with a lot of guys on it.
Scaffolding come down on every job.
Young Tavis is down there, caught under all that rock and sand. We got to get him out.
I'll get the ambulance, Harrigan. But you get back there. Patch up that break. Go on.
Davis wouldn't be there now, Bars. If you sent that gang up tunnel far enough when the blast come off.
Look, Sandhound, don't tell me how to build a tunnel.
I'll tell you anything I want.
Okay, if you want to play... pick yourself up and do what I said. Okay, reporter, there's a story. How we lost another day.
Yeah, what about the man you just lost?
This is one accident they won't blame on me. A woman in the tunnel's the worst jinx there is. Kane knows that. And I got to phone upstairs for an ambulance.
Well, I see the two partners are working late tonight. That's good.
Valentine. Did you get a good story out of that accident today?
Now, look, let's stop kidding each other. You know I'm not a reporter, Bowers.
I wasn't born yesterday. I know Kane had you checking on me.
Why shouldn't I? You know we can't go on much longer this way, and you're in charge. A little bribe from the Cameron Company, and you...
Another crack like that, and I'll fix you.
Okay, break it up, boys. Break it up. Let me do some talking. What I have to say will be short and to the point.
Yeah?
Yeah. I did some checking today. Bowers isn't the only one who might profit by these accidents. You could too, Kane.
Huh? What are you talking about?
Let's hear some more.
I had a talk with the city engineer. He said he doesn't know how you can do this job on the bid you put in.
I admit I was figuring close to the line, but we would have made it if things went right.
So the boy in the stiff shirt comes up with another bad deal, huh?
And, Kane, you had the foresight to take out insurance to protect you in case you went broke building this tunnel.
Well, that's a natural precaution.
Oh, yeah. But it was a personal insurance policy, taken out in your name, not for the firm.
What's that, Jim? I know how you've been spending money, so I paid the premiums, but I was only thinking of the company.
Well, here's what I'm thinking, Kane. The insurance company would pay off if none of these accidents could be traced to you, and you'd be saved from a ruinous bid.
Yeah, but that's how it might
look.
Look,
gentlemen, look. If there's one thing I don't like, it's to be kidded along. Now, do you still want me to find out what's behind those accidents?
I have nothing to fear, Valentine. That's why I hired you.
I know I'm clean. Go right ahead, Valentine.
Okay. If you're sure that's what you want.
Of course.
You heard what I said.
Yeah, but just remember, if I dredge up something from the bottom of that river that you don't like, you're the guys who ordered it.
We'll return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine in just a moment. Meanwhile, a word about parlor pastimes. Remember this game a few years ago? Somebody would say, knock, knock, and you'd say, who's there? Many a good gag and many a laugh came out of this game. But at the same time, there was another kind of knock, knock that was no laughing matter. For it was in your car's engine. And engine knocking often caused overstress of parts, severe temperatures, waste of power and gasoline. Today, motor fuel engineers have this problem under control. At Standard of California, they blended several different gasolines into one great motor fuel, Chevron Supreme gasoline. Laboratory tests and road tests prove that premium quality Chevron Supreme burns smoothly, has high anti-knock value. In your new car or an older one, try Chevron Supreme yourself. Besides anti-knock value, you'll find it has all the qualities your car needs for good going. You can get Chevron Supreme gasoline at standard stations and independent Chevron gas stations where they say and mean, we'll take better care of your car. And now back to tonight's adventure of George Valentine and $1 million tunnel burrowing deep under a riverbed. A series of unexplained accidents that stopped the job cold. Why? That's the answer George has to supply. But so far, all he's learned is the rather startling fact that both partners in the contracting firm of Kane and Bowers have their own good reasons for wanting to see the tunnel left unfinished. Right now, George and Claire have just entered Hogan's hog pen, hangout of the Sandhogs, where Big Bill Kane is talking to his workers.
And I know we've been falling behind down in the tunnel, but you know Jim Bowers and me were Sandhogs ourselves. We can lick this job, and I've even hired Valentine here to make sure about them accidents. Now, here's an offer. You make up for lost time, and I pay time and a half to every man from then on.
I could swallow that better, Brooksy, if I didn't know about that insurance policy Kane took out.
Now, look, boys. That offer my partner just made you suits me, too. Just wanted you to know.
I could swallow that easier if I didn't know about the offer Bowers got from that other construction company.
Well, I don't know about you boys, but I still have my doubts.
Oh, it's our cheerful old friend from the manlock.
Don't get me wrong, Mr. Kane. I like making extra money. But when a job like this gets off on the wrong foot, it never straightens out.
All right, Charlie, you're just getting the jitters.
All right, go on and laugh. But I wouldn't be surprised that if we pushed that tunnel another 50 yards, we'd run into a ledge of gravel and hardpan. Boulders will never get past. Just more trouble.
Now, what we want to know from you boys is, are you with us or not? Huh? Oh, fine. That's all we want to hear. The drinks are on Kane and Bowers. Go and get it.
Come on, Brooksy.
Where are we going, George?
Just riding a hunch. We've got to be someplace before 5 o'clock.
I wish you'd hurry, Mr. Valentine. You know the Bureau of Harbors and Waterways closes at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, sure. Be through in a minute. Yeah, I think I found the map I want.
Topographical survey, riverbed, section V, Oleander through Perry Street.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's just where the tunnel is being built, George.
Huh? Very interesting. Yeah, and this would be around Pier 19.
What are you talking about?
I'm not quite sure, Brooksy. But we're going to ride that hunch a little harder. Hey, you the watchman on this pier, Pop?
Yep, been here for the last 15 years.
Huh? Hey, would you tell me something?
Yeah?
Those white bubbles coming up there in the river.
Yeah, that's why they're working on a new tunnel, son. That's as far as they got in all these months.
Yes, we read they're having a lot of trouble.
Yeah, they keep working day and night, too. Can always tell by the position of that trawler out there just where they're working.
You don't say.
Yep, she's there every night, too. Sort of keeps right ahead of the tunnel. I can tell that by the bubbles that come up out of the water.
I wonder what the trawler has to do with the tunnel.
Yeah, I don't know. Man goes over the side in a diving suit every night. Suppose that's got something to do with the tunneling job, though. Probably he's kind of a traffic cop down there. Clears out the fish so that they can go ahead.
Traffic cop, huh? Hey, Pop, you've been a great help. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Now where, George?
Angel, what do you say I hire a motorboat and we take a nice romantic ride on the river?
Okay, George, I agree with you. A trawler on top of the river has nothing to do with the building of a tunnel under the riverbed.
Then, Brooks, why is it here every night, always just ahead of the shield of the tunnel? Now, that's more than a coincidence.
There it is, up ahead.
Uh-huh.
What are we going to say to whoever's aboard? May we drop up for a cup of old-fashioned clam chowder?
If you don't mind, young lady, I'll do the talking.
As always.
Hey, up there. Hey, can we come aboard?
Anybody home?
No, and get away from here.
Well, the truth is we ran out of gas.
Did you hear me? I said get on your way.
Well, surely you can spare enough gasoline
I
just...
see you didn't understand what I said.
George!
Hey, what are you trying to do?
Next time I won't miss. Now get away from here and stay away.
George, what's going going on around here?
Look, Brooksy, I caught the name on that trawler. It's the Martha M. Tomorrow morning, first thing, check on the registry. See who owns it. Then pick me up at the tunnel.
You were down in the tunnel early this morning, Mr. Valentine.
I had to look around, Charlie. How long have I been sitting here in the manlock?
Oh, just about 15 minutes.
Seems like I just got in here. And Charlie, I don't feel so good.
You'll be okay. You're an old hand at this now. You've been up and down here a couple of times.
But it seems like I got hammers in my head, beating away. And you look like 6 guys lined up 6 miles away.
You'll be okay when you get some fresh air.
Hey, look, officer. I know where I want to go. Help me, will you?
Yeah, you need a lot of help, mister. I've been watching you weaving down the block.
I'm very sick. I feel rotten.
I wonder why.
I think I got the bends.
Yes, and you've been bending over the bar too much.
Hey, take me back, officer. The tunnel.
There's only one place I'm taking you, to jail, so you can sleep it off. Come along with you now.
Mr. Kane. Mr. Bowers, I know Mr. Valentine was here at the tunnel this morning.
Okay, but what you so excited about, Miss Brooks?
He was supposed to meet me at the shaft, and he never would have gone without leaving some kind of message.
I wouldn't worry about Valentine.
I found out what he wanted to know, and he was waiting for that information.
Information about the tunnel?
What kind of information?
I'll let Mr. Valentine tell you. Do you mind if I use your phone?
No, go right ahead.
Hello? Police headquarters? Let me talk to Lieutenant Riley. Okay, I'll wait.
Look, we hired your boss so we could keep this thing confidential.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's forget about ethics, boys. The man who's among the missing is someone I happen to care a lot about. Hello? Oh, Lieutenant Riley, this is Brooksy. Oh, I need your help. I can't find George. Oh, look, Lieutenant, will you check the jails and the hospitals and see what you can come up with? Oh, believe me, Lieutenant, I know what I'm talking about.
We traced him down for you, lady, but you're not taking him out of here.
Oh,
Brooksy, my
oh,
head.
take it easy, darling.
Best thing is to let him sleep it off.
Can't you see this man is sick? He's got the chokes, the bends. We've got to get him back to that decompression chamber at the tunnel.
What are you talking about?
Oh, I'll show you. Wait a minute. Look, this tag here around his neck.
I can't breathe.
Oh, so they took it off him. Well, here, they gave me one, too. Here, read it.
This man is a sand hog. Decompression chamber. Rush.
Yeah.
Okay, lady, you win. And I hope we make it.
Hello, Angel.
Oh, darling, I thought you'd never open your eyes.
Hey, why doesn't somebody turn that radiator off? It's hissing.
We're back in the manlock, George. That's why you're feeling so much better.
Oh. Hey, but what happened?
Well, you were down in the tunnel this morning, and you must have come up too quickly. That's why they picked you up in the street wandering around.
Oh, yeah. I remember coming up. Then everything suddenly going blank.
I got all the dope on that trawler, the Martha M.
Yeah?
Well, it has nothing at all to do with the tunnel. It's registered in the name of C.W. Egan and his wife, Martha M. Egan.
Oh, yeah, and the Egans were out fishing. C.W. in a diving suit and Martha M. with a rifle instead of a rod and reel.
George, there's something else.
Oh, there couldn't.
There was another accident in the tunnel.
Oh, what kind of accident?
I don't know.
Let me get over to that phone on the wall, Brooksy. I want to talk to Kane.
Okay, George.
Hello.
Yeah? Hello?
Bill Kane?
Yeah.
This is Valentine, Kane.
Yeah, Valentine. We're having a lot of trouble. You
okay?
Oh, sure, just dandy.
Heard you had a narrow escape.
Oh, what kind of accident was it now?
Old tunnel nearly got flooded.
Yeah?
Yeah, just a good thing the new ship wasn't in yet. Poor Charlie, the lock tender, got killed.
Charlie?
Nobody will ever know why he was down at the tunnel face with a drill, but when we found him, he was over his head in a muck pile.
I see.
Don't know what the answer is, but it's the end of old Charlie Egan.
Egan?
George, what is it?
Sure, you know Charlie?
Egan. So that's the answer.
What's that, Valentine?
Look, Kane, get Bowers and wait for me in your office. First, I want to see a lady about a boat. Then I got something to say to you.
Valentine, you don't know what you're saying.
Just the same, gentlemen, it was Charlie Egan who was responsible for all the trouble here at the tunnel.
That doesn't make sense. He was just a lock tender.
You gave him the job more out of pity than anything else.
Okay, then listen to this. Do you remember what Charlie said at the hog pen?
Not particularly.
He said if the tunnel went another 50 yards, it would run into a ledge of gravel, hard pan, and boulders.
Well?
Well, the map of the Bureau of Harbors and Waterways didn't show it. But Charlie knew exactly what he was talking about.
How would he know that?
That's funny.
I asked myself those same questions. How would an ordinary sandhog just in from Chicago know the exact topography of the riverbed?
Yeah.
He suspected I was getting wise and saw to it that I got a good case of the bends this morning. Just to make sure I was a dead duck, he took that tag from around my neck.
Yeah, but why? Was he crazy?
Well, that's a matter of opinion. I didn't want to believe the reason myself when I found out. I talked to Mrs. Egan. She's the lady on the boat. And she's in the outer office right now. Suppose we have her in and see if it's any easier for you to believe her story.
Anything you say, Valentine.
Okay. Will you come in, please, Mrs. Egan?
All right.
I want you to repeat just what you told me.
Well, what shall I tell them? That two people wasted their lives looking for a will-o'-the-wisp? A treasure you were always going to find the next day?
Treasure?
Yes. Sensible people don't believe in buried treasure and sunken ships bulging with gold, but Charlie did.
Now, wait a minute.
He was the eccentric C.W. Egan, who spent a fortune and 20 years of his life looking for ships that had sunk with treasure aboard.
And fantastic as it may seem, gentlemen, he found one. Didn't he, Mrs. Egan?
Just a couple of months ago. He went down into the river every night. He kept prowling around the hull of that boat. He knew that there was gold there somewhere. He kept saying he'd find it any day now, his treasure.
And then Kane and Bowers started to drive a tunnel.
Yeah. Charlie knew it was going to meet head-on with the Granada, the old Spanish galleon he knew was there. It became a race against time.
That's why he got a job here. Did all he could to keep the tunnel from getting any farther.
Yeah. And at night, every night, he'd go down to look some more. And I'd help him.
And today was his last desperate attempt to flood us out.
Yes. He wasn't going to see anybody get to his treasure as long as he lived. And he kept his word.
Well, Brooksy, here's the check from Kane and Bowers. That's all washed up. So what do you say we go out stepping tonight?
Oh, swell, darling.
Did you see the paper this morning?
No, why?
Well, they raised the Granada out of the river last night.
They did?
And there was a treasure chest, just as Charlie knew all along.
Oh, so old Charlie was right after all.
Yep, a chest packed to the brim with old Spanish coins.
George, how romantic.
Oh, yeah, but old Charlie wouldn't have been too happy about it.
No, why?
No. The whole batch was worth about $100.
And now a message of importance to motorists. Maybe you've got your vacation trip all mapped out, but how about the family car? Before you start out, better make sure it gets a thorough vacation check at your standard station or independent Chevron gas station. They'll inspect your tires, battery, spark plugs, and oil filter. They can tell whether there's any risk of your fan belt getting out of kilter. And they'll make sure that each vital lubrication spot is okay. Besides helping you get off to a good start on your vacation, there's another thing about independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations. Wherever you motor in the West, you're never far from their quality products and superior services. And don't forget, whether you're on a vacation or just motoring around town, these are the service stations where they say and mean, we'll take better care of your car. Next week, when you tune our way for another adventure of George Valentine, you'll hear...
Brooksy, I want you to get down to headquarters as soon as possible. Have them get that whole crew together, all those pixies that were at the seance last night.
Including the spirits, George?
Including Miss Turner. Have them all brought back to the sanctuary.
But why?
If there really was a murder, Brooksy, I won't be able to live with myself until I find the reason for it. Right now, I got a date with a crystal ball, and maybe I'll get a preview.
Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and Standard stations throughout the West. Let George Do It stars Robert Bailey as George with Francis Robinson here. Tonight's story was written by David Victor and Herbert Little, Jr. and directed by Don Clark. Also heard in the cast were Francis X. Bushman as Kane, Herbert Litton as Bowers, Ruth Parrott as Mrs. Egan, Joe Duvall as Charlie, Franklin Pinky Parker as Sanders, and Leo Cleary as Harrigan. The music is composed and conducted by Eddie Dunstetter. Your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. This was actually a very well-researched episode. And the one thing I always appreciate about the way they do these stories is when George comes up with the solution. It's something that makes perfect sense. And you feel like he's a real clever guy for knowing it. You don't feel like, oh, well, this is just really contrived. This was a very clever scheme and a very surprising outcome. Plus, I thought the way that Charlie tried to do away with George, that was very unique. To basically take him out of the manlock without enough oxygen. So whoever did the research for this show was absolutely on the balls. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, bringing you another episode of The Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. If you have any comments, send them to me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Please cast your vote over at Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. And if you haven't filled out our listener survey, please do so at survey.greatdetectives.net. Got a couple comments from Zachariah. He enjoyed the Christmas episode. This is the best episode ever of Old Time Radio for Christmas time. And he also writes, I just saw the new Sherlock Holmes movie. It was a very enjoyable movie, although it didn't really feel like Holmes to me. It felt more like the guy from Numbers with a really tough edge. And he says that he enjoys these episodes that I'm playing, and he did enjoy this movie. Well, thanks. I think I will see the Sherlock Holmes movie, but I'm leaning towards it more being in my Netflix queue as opposed to going to the theater. I just don't go to the theater that often, but I've heard a lot. It'll be interesting to see just so I can have my own opinion rather than just kind of the varying and conflicted opinions, though mostly positive, but mostly agreeing that it wasn't quite Holmes. You know, speaking of that, I got a little curious, because one name you hear on every Sherlock Holmes episode, and you might just skip over it, is the name Edith Miser. And I was kind of wondering, well, who is Edith Miser as a writer? She actually wrote all of the Rathbone Bruce episodes, and then and going back, she actually started with Holmes on the radio in 1930. She wrote the first script for William Gillette's appearance on the radio series that we played earlier with Richard Gordon. Miser basically, she was an actress, had a lot of success on Broadway, and then, but she was a big-time Sherlock Holmes fan. And she actually went to start lobbying networks to start doing Sherlock Holmes. And she got them to go ahead and put it on the air, and she handled the adaptations. And she basically just steadfastly, she said she wasn't going to add any extra violence or sex to appeal to the audience. She was just going to tell the stories in the spirit of Arthur Conan Doyle. And even the stories that she wrote that departed from the Holmes canon, those were praised by the Arthur Conan Doyle family. Now, of course, when we're talking about the Conan Doyle family, this was back in a time when he had close relatives still alive. But basically, it's through her work that Holmes was able to get on the air, and that it was able to stay on the air for so many years, and she got to adapt her favorite stories to the air. So, a very neat and determined lady, and I just thought that'd be an interesting tidbit to share. All right, well, we're going to get into today's show in just a moment. Before we do, I want to encourage you, as you make travel plans for the new year, remember this name, JohnnyDollarAir.com. JohnnyDollarAir.com will take you to Priceline.com, where you have the option to name your price on hotels, airline tickets, rental cars, or to search for published specials like you do on any other site. If you go to JohnnyDollarAir.com, you get the great deals that come with Priceline, plus your purchase helps to support great old-time radio. So please go to JohnnyDollarAir.com. We're going to get into today's episode, The Copper Beaches, here on the Great Detectives of Old-Time Radio.
The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, starring Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce. The makers of bromoquinine cold tablets bring you another adventure of Sherlock Holmes, with Basil Rathbone as Sherlock Holmes and Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson. This program is presented every week at this same time, and a complete story is dramatized each time. Colds are already here, ladies and gentlemen. Be on your guard. Be careful. The so-called common cold may be the start of more serious illness. At the first sign of a cold, take famous bromoquinine tablets. Bromoquinine tablets act promptly and decisively to relieve the discomforts of a cold. They help reduce the fever of a cold. They give you the results you want in the time you want. Yes, at the very first sign of a cold, let it be bromoquinine cold tablets. Now here we are once more in the cheerful, firelit study of the famous Dr. Watson, who's relating his delightful Sherlock Holmes adventure. Good evening, Doctor. You look a bit irritated, if you'll pardon my saying.
Good evening, Mr. Manning. Good evening. Yes, I am a bit annoyed, and with good reason. I don't know if I've told you that Holmes has been listening in to these reminiscences. Well, here's the letter I received from him after last week's story. Read it.
All right. My dear Watson, I noticed that in your last broadcast, you gave way to your regrettable habit of emotionalizing your story. Detection, my dear fellow, is or ought to be an exact science. To tinge it with romanticism is like introducing a love story into the fifth proposition of Euclid. As ever, Sherlock Holmes.
Well, what do you think of that?
But the emotion was there. You couldn't tamper with the truth.
Holmes has always maintained that the truth is not in what you say, but in the impression you create in the other person's mind. Well, Holmes always complained that I overstress the human element in recording his cases. How well I remember the attitude with which he received the publishing of my first book about his adventures. It was a cold morning in early spring. We were sitting on either side of a cheery fire in our rooms in Baker Street. A thick fog rolled down between the dun-colored houses. Our gas was lit. It shone on the white cloth and glimmered on the coffee cups and on the silver. The breakfast table had not yet been cleared away. Holmes had been silent all the morning, smoking his long cherrywood pipe, which usually displaced his favorite clay when he was in a disputatious mood. Altogether, he was not in the best of tempers.
Matches. Where are the matches? Look at that confounded fog. What happens to all the matches in this house, I'd like to know.
My dear Holmes, why not use the tongs and a live coal if you want to relight your pipe?
Huh? Oh! I burned myself.
For heaven's sake, Holmes, stop stuttering. Something's annoying you. Why not get it off your chest?
It's that confounded book of yours.
What?
Sensationalism, Watson. Rank sensationalism. You're always placing the emphasis on the crime. Crime is common, logic is rare. You should stress the logic. You have degraded what should have been a course of lectures into a series of tales.
Now, really, Holmes, that's not logical. You're always complaining that crime is falling off. You say there are no first-class criminals left.
Quite. And therefore, if you depend on the crime to hold your readers, you'll soon be a back number. Criminals. Bah! They've lost all their enterprise and originality. My practice seems to be degenerating into an agency for recovering lost lead pencils and giving good advice to young ladies from boarding schools.
Advice to the lovelorn, eh?
Well, look at this. This note. It came by this morning's post. Here. The last straw, that's what it is. Read it.
Let's have a look. Dear Mr. Holmes, I'm very anxious to consult you as to whether I should or I should not accept a situation which has been offered me as a governess. I shall call at 10:30 tomorrow if I do not inconvenience you. Yours faithfully, Violet Hunter. Well, it's almost 11 now.
Exactly. She's late. Just like a woman.
I say, Holmes, this must be your young lady now, walking briskly up the street.
See. Brisk, purposeful manner. Nice, bright, intelligent face.
Yes, it is. She's stopping at our door.
Well, there may be something in this case after all, my dear Watson. She's not the hysterical sort that makes a fuss over nothing. Shh. Here she is. Come in. How do you do?
This is Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Quite. And this is my colleague, Dr. Watson.
How do you do?
How do you do?
I trust you'll excuse my troubling you, Mr. Holmes, but I've had a very strange experience. And as I have no relations of any sort to advise me, I thought I'd best come to you.
I shall be very happy to do anything that I can.
Well, I've been a governess for 5 years in the family of Colonel Spencer Monroe. He's been transferred to Nova Scotia, so that for the last few months I've been without a situation. Why, I advertised and answered advertisements, but without success. You see, the money I had saved began to run out, and I was at my wit's end.
Indeed. Go on.
Well, yesterday I called in at a well-known employment agency run by a Miss Soper. When I arrived, the outer office was filled with young ladies looking for situations. I was told to wait. But I did so, and after about half an hour, my name was called out. Well, the door to Miss Soper's private office was ajar. Seated beside her was a prodigiously stout man with a round, smiling face and a heavy chin. Oh, his eyes were like two little slits. I advanced to the door, my knees trembling. Oh, Mr. Holmes, if you know how I needed that work.
Come in, my dear. Come in. Mr. Newcastle. This is Miss... what is your name, my dear?
Miss Hunter. Violet Hunter.
Oh, yes, Miss Hunter.
Capital. I couldn't ask for anything better. I'm sure you'll do, Miss Hunter.
Well, I hope so, Mr. Newcastle.
You're looking for a situation as a governess?
Yes, sir.
And what salary do you ask?
Well, I had £4 a month in my last place.
£4? Rank sweating. How anyone could have the audacity to offer that to a lady with such attraction, such accomplishments. A lady fitted for the rearing of a child who may someday play a considerable part in the history of his country. Well, your salary with me, madam, would commence at £100 a year.
100? Oh, Mr. Newcastle.
And furthermore, it is my custom to advance my young ladies half their salary beforehand.
May I ask where you live, Mr. Rucastle?
Hampshire, a charming rural spot. The Copper Beeches is the name of the place, 5 miles north of Winchester. Oh, the dearest old house.
And what would be my duty?
One child, a dear little romper, age 6. Oh, if you could see him killing cockroaches with a slipper. Smack, smack, smack. He's gone before you could wink.
My sole duty, then, is to take care of this child.
Well, I'm sure your good sense would suggest that you obey any little commands which my wife might give, provided, of course, that they were such as a lady might obey with propriety. You see no difficulty, eh?
Oh, I should be happy to make myself useful.
Oh, by the way, in dress, for example, we're faddy people. Faddy but kind-hearted. Now, if you were asked to wear a particular dress that we might give you, you wouldn't object to our little whim, eh?
Oh, no.
Or to sit here or there, that wouldn't be offensive to you?
Why, no.
Or to cut your hair short before you come to us.
My hair?
Oh, yes, it's quite essential. It's a little fancy of my wife's, you see. And ladies' fancies, my dear Miss Hunter, must be consulted.
But my hair... Oh, no, I couldn't.
No, oh, what a pity. Well, in that case, Miss Stoper, I'd best inspect a few more of your young ladies.
Good day, then, Miss Hunter. I'm afraid you must consider yourself struck from our list.
Oh, but...
You can hardly expect us to exert ourselves to find another such opening for you.
But, Miss Stoper...
Good day, Miss Hunter.
Oh, just a minute, Miss Stoper. Let's not be too hard on the young lady. After all, my request was a little sudden. Perhaps, Miss Hunter, you'd like 24 hours in which to consider the matter. And in view of the fact that you have particularly beautiful hair, I might be willing to raise the salary to £120 a year to recompense you for our little eccentricities. Yes.
Unusual, most unusual, my dear Miss Hunter. What do you make of it, Watson?
Well, perhaps the gentleman's wife is a lunatic, and he wishes to humor her offences in order to prevent an outbreak.
Possibly, Watson, possibly. In any case, it doesn't seem a nice household for a young lady.
But the money, Mr. Holmes, the money, and I need it so.
Well, yes, the pay is good. Too good. Why should they give you £120 when they can have their pick for 40? There must be some strong reason.
But I have no choice.
Then you've made up your mind to accept?
Yes, I must. I thought if I told you the circumstances, you would understand afterwards if I wanted your help. Mr. Holmes, I should feel so much stronger if I knew you were behind me.
Certainly you may carry that feeling away with you. And if at any time you should find yourself in danger...
Danger? Well, what danger could there be?
My dear Miss Hunter, it would cease to be a danger if we could define it. But remember, at any time, day or night, just telegraph me and we'll come to your help.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Thank you.
Holmes, it's been almost a week since that charming Miss Hunter called. Conditions must be pretty good at the Copper Beeches, or we'd have heard from her.
You never know, Watson. You never know. She may not be able to get to a telegraph office.
Huh? Nonsense, Holmes. Nothing very dreadful can happen out in the open country like that.
That's where you're wrong, Watson. It's my experience that the vilest alleys in London do not present a more dreadful record of sin than does the smiling, beautiful countryside.
Oh, you give me the creeps. What do you mean?
The pressure of public opinion is greatest in the towns. There is no lane so vile that the scream of a tortured child or the thud of a drunkard's blow does not beget sympathy and assistance from the neighbors. But the countryside, my dear Watson, filled with its lonely houses. Think of the hellish cruelty, the hidden wickedness. Why, it may go on year in, year out in such places, and no one the wiser. Had our young friend gone to Winchester, I should not have had this fear for her safety. It's the 5 miles of country which makes the danger. See what it is, Watson.
Oh, thank you, sir. It's a telegram for you, Holmes.
Oh, give it to me. It's from Miss Hunter.
Oh, well, what'd she say?
Come at once. We'll meet you at the Black Swan Hotel, Winchester, at 3 this afternoon. And at my wits' end, don't fail me.
What do you suppose has happened?
Hurry, Watson. We've no time to lose. There's a train from Waterloo Station in half an hour. If we can only get to her in time.
In just a moment, we will will follow Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson on their strange journey. Ladies and gentlemen, be careful of the so-called common cold. It may quickly turn into something else. Act quickly, act prudently. At the first sign of a cold, take bromoquinine tablets. Bromoquinine tablets promptly relieve the distress of a cold. They help reduce the fever of a cold. Bromoquinine tablets are effective for two very good reasons. First, they're made especially for the relief of a cold symptom. Specialized medication, in other words. Second, they work internally. They get out of cold's discomforts from the inside, which is the way you want. Be businesslike in your treatment of a cold misery. Take a businesslike preparation. Bromoquinine tablets. You can get these famous tablets at any drugstore in America, a few cents a box. Be sure you ask for Bromo, B-R-O-M-O, quinine, Q-U-I-N-I-N-E. Bromoquinine cold tablets.
Ah, yes, there's the Black Swan. Opposite the station.
Yes, and if I'm not mistaken, that's Miss Hunter waiting for us on the doorstep. She looks a bit pale and shaky, eh, Holmes?
Yes. Poor girl is obviously frightened.
Mr. Holmes, so kind of you to come. You too, Dr. Watson.
Oh, not at all. Pleasure.
I can't tell you how anxious I've been.
There now, Miss Hunter. Perhaps if we go inside, they can give us a private sitting room.
Yes, Mr. Holmes. I've ordered tea this way, please.
Ah, yes, that's better. Nice, cozy fire. Close the door, will you, Watson? That's right. Now then, suppose we let the doctor do the pouring while you tell the story. First of all, how do you like your tea?
2 lumps and a little cream.
Oh, right-o.
Thank you, Dr. Watson.
Yes, and now?
Well, first of all, I've had no actual ill treatment from Mr. and Mrs. Newcastle, but there are things that frighten me. However, I had that begin at the beginning.
Yes, that is generally a good place to start.
Well, Mr. Holmes, Copper Beaches is a large, sinister-looking house, almost completely surrounded by woods. It depressed me from the moment of my arrival. I was met at the door by Mr. Newcastle and his wife.
And, is she...
No, Miss Bell. She's not married.
I see.
She's a small, pale-faced woman, much younger than Mr. Newcastle. In fact, I gather that she's his second wife. You see, there was a daughter by the first marriage, a girl now over 20, but she's not living at the house. Mr. Newcastle said that she couldn't get along with her stepmother, so he sent her to America, to Philadelphia.
And does Mrs. Newcastle strike you as a difficult woman to get along with?
Oh, no, Mr. Holmes. She's shy and rather quiet. More than once I surprised her in tears. At first I thought it might be worry over the disposition of her child.
Oh, what's the matter with his disposition?
Well, he's badly spoiled. He has an ungovernable temper and seems to take great delight in torturing birds and small animals.
Pleasant little beast.
And the rest of the household?
Well, there's only one servant. Toller is his name. A rough, uncouth man with a perpetual smell of drink about him. Why they keep him, I don't know. Except perhaps because he's the only one who can manage Carlo.
Carlo?
Yes. Carlo's a huge, underfed mastiff that's kept chained in the stable during the day, but at night they let him out. Oh, he's a terrible beast. Even Mr. Newcastle is afraid of him. I'm sure he'd tear any trespass at a bit.
I wonder why Mr. Newcastle desires such ferocious protection.
I'm sure I don't know, unless there's something on the top floor of the west wing that he wants to protect.
The west wing, eh?
Yes, the door that leads into it is opposite my room, and it's kept securely locked.
Yes, it looks nasty to me, Holmes.
Please, Watson, please, don't interrupt.
Well, the second day after my arrival, immediately after breakfast, Mr. Newcastle asked me to put on a dress which had been laid out for me on my bed.
What was it like?
Well, it wasn't a new dress, Mr. Holmes, but the material was excellent and of a particularly brilliant shade, an electric blue.
Oh, electric blue, charming color.
I put it on and went down to the living room. Mr. Newcastle had placed a chair for me by the front window. He asked me to sit there with my back to the window and to read to him from a French novel. Well, I read for an hour, and at the end of that time, he said I might go upstairs and change.
Strange.
And this experience has been repeated every morning since then. Well, as time passed, I became more and more curious. Why were they so careful to keep my face turned away from the window? Naturally, I was consumed with the desire to see what was going on behind my back. So today I devised a means. I noticed at breakfast that Mr. Rucastle had had quite a few drinks. A happy thought seized me. My hand mirror had been broken, so I concealed a piece of it in my handkerchief and later in my book, feeling sure that Mr. Rucastle was too drunk to notice. Holding the book up, I was able to see everything behind me.
And what did you see?
Well, at first there was nothing. At the second glance, however, I saw a young man in a gray suit leaning against a railing which bordered our field. He was looking earnestly in my direction. Mr. Rucastle must have noticed my surprise, for he burst out angrily.
Really, Miss Hunter, your attention must be wandering. That's the second time that you've played that passage.
Oh.
Furthermore, there's an impertinent fellow up the road who keeps staring at you. Is he a friend of yours?
Oh, no, Mr. Rucastle, I don't know anyone around here.
Well, kindly turn around and motion him to go away.
Oh, wouldn't it be better not to notice him?
Do as I tell you. I really don't encourage you to have any followers.
Very well, Mr. Rucastle. There.
Impertinent fellow. That will be all for this morning, Miss Hunter. You may go to your room.
Oh, but Mr. Rucastle, I hope you don't...
Go to your room, I say.
Yes, sir.
And after that, you needn't bother to wear that blue dress.
Oh, dear, what a frightful household. Oh, if I could only get away from here, it's all so depressing. What? But he's left the key in the door to the west wing. He must be drawn. I wonder what's inside. Oh, it wouldn't hurt to take just one look. Oh, how dark it is and empty. Wait. 3 doors. Where the middle one is barred at the end of an old iron bedstead. I wonder why. Oh, but it's spooky in here. What was that? Oh, it must have been a bat. Someone's in there. Or maybe it's something. I can't stand it. Too eerie. I've got to get out of here. I've got to get out. Oh, dear, there comes Mr. Rucastle up the stairs. Oh, Mr. Rucastle. Mr. Rucastle.
It was you, then. I thought it must be when I saw the door open.
Oh, I'm so frightened.
My dear young lady, and what frightened you?
Well, I was foolish enough to go into that vacant wing, but it was so lonely and eerie, and a bat swooped down into my face.
Is that all?
Well, what else could there be?
And why do you suppose that I keep that door locked?
I'm sure I don't know.
It's to keep people out who have no business there, you see.
I'm sure if I'd known it.
Well, you know now, my dear young lady. And if you ever put your foot over that threshold again, I'll throw you to the basket.
What a dreadful experience.
Mr. Holmes, I feel sure there's someone locked in that room. Someone who's unhappy, perhaps tortured. Oh, good heavens, it's almost 5. I promised to be back by 6. Mr. and Mrs. Rucastle are going out. If Mr. Rucastle should discover where I've been...
You've acted like a brave and sensible girl, Miss Hunter.
Yes, indeed you have.
Do you think you could do one more thing?
I can try, Mr. Holmes.
Dr. Watson and I will be at the Copper Beaches by 7. The Rucastles will be gone by that time, and I don't imagine the Mastiff will be let loose until they return.
Oh, no, Mr. Holmes. It would be too dangerous for them to get back to the house.
Good. We will hope that Toller is still drunk. At any rate, you must get us into the house. We must explore the West Wing.
I'll do my best, Mr. Holmes. Now I must hurry. Goodbye, gentlemen.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, Miss Hunter. Well, my dear Holmes, what do you make of it all? The blue dress and the man in front of the house.
Obviously, they've had someone had her impersonating someone. Someone young whose hair has been cut off during an illness. That someone is probably the person imprisoned in the West Wing.
Sinister.
That is not the most sinister part of Miss Hunter's story.
Oh, what is that?
The unpleasant disposition of the child.
Well, what's that got to do with it?
My dear Watson, as a medical man, you know that a child's tendencies can be discovered by a study of the parents. But heredity is a science to be worked backwards as well. You can get a good insight into the character of the parents by studying the children. This child is cruel, abnormally cruel. He probably inherited it from one of his parents. I only hope nothing serious happens before 7 o'clock tonight.
Gracious, what a night. The first thunderstorm of the season. Listen to that dog. He's in an ugly temper.
Listens to the house with this group of copper beeches in front of it. Yes. Miss Hunter waiting for us in the doorway.
The coast must be clear.
Oh, come in. You must be soaked to the skin.
Oh, you're rather wet yourself. You must be careful, you know. You'll be catching...
What? What's that pounding?
It's Toller. He was just going out to release the dog. I sent him to the wine cellar, then locked him in.
Splendid.
I managed to get Toller's keys this afternoon, too. He was quite drunk. They are duplicates of Mr. Rucastle.
Better and better, but come along upstairs. We've no time to wait. Have you got your revolver handy, Watson?
Yes.
Good.
Good heavens, that lightning must have hit quite near here.
Well, the copper beeches, no doubt.
No, which key? Oh, this one. That's right. Oh, nothing here. Come along.
Listen to that rain on the roof.
The middle door, you said. Hello in there. No answer. I don't like that. Watson, help me remove this bedstead, will you?
Sure.
That's right. It's tied at one side. Here, cut the rope. That's it.
The door's locked.
Oh, we must break it open then. Come on. 1, 2. Hello. There's no one here.
That villain Rucastle has made away with the prisoner.
Maybe right. He's probably been carried off.
Yes, but how?
Through the skylight. It's still open. Shut that table over here.
What are you going to do?
Stand on it, of course. Yes. 2 pairs of footprints, and there's a ladder resting against the eaves. So that's how he did it.
But that's not possible. The ladder wasn't there when the Rucastles went away.
Then he must have come back.
He's a dangerous and clever man. Listen. Yes. I think I hear his steps on the stairs.
Oh, Mr. Holmes, you'll kill us all.
I thought I'd find you here.
You villain, what have you done with your daughter?
I'm the one that should ask that. You thief, you robbers. I've caught you. You're in my power. I'll fix you.
Oh, no.
I'll fix
He's going to get the dog. We'll be torn to shreds.
Quick, Watson. We must close the front door.
Right, Holmes.
Let me up, Mr. Rucastle. Loose the dog. He'll kill Mr. Rucastle. Oh, quick. It'll be too late.
It's Toller. Here are the keys, Miss Hunter. Let him out.
All right.
His baby.
Oh, it's Carlo. He's got Mr. Rucastle by the throat.
Quick, Watson, give me your revolver.
Careful you don't hit the man by mistake.
Shut up and stand back, Watson.
Oh, Mr. Holmes, thank heaven. You've killed Carlo. I thought it was too late. It's so horrible. I think I feel...
Watson and Toller, bring Rucastle into the house, will you?
Oh, I feel so strange. Weak. I can't stop
Now, Miss Hunter, please, it's all over. Just you go upstairs and pack your bag. Dr. Watson and I are going to take you back to town with us on the 9 o'clock train. So you think, Watson, that Rucastle will live?
I'm afraid so, Holmes.
Oh, I'm so glad to get away from that dreadful place.
I say, Holmes, just what did happen to the prisoner in the West Wing, and who was it?
It's all so disgustingly simple, my dear Watson. It's Rucastle's daughter, as I suspected. It seems that she had inherited some money from her mother, who was Rucastle's first wife. When she threatened to get married and take a small fortune with her, her father tried to get her to sign a paper giving the money to him. He worried her until she got brain fever and had to have all her hair cut off.
Oh, what a brute.
I got all these details from Toller. Still, her young man stuck to her, and she to him. After that, Mr. Rucastle locked his daughter up and brought Miss Hunter down from London in order to impersonate her, get rid of the persistent suitor. This young gentleman, however, was a persevering chap, and having greased Toller's palm very thoroughly, he learned the true state of affairs. With the help of Toller and a long stepladder, he rescued his fiancée. They're now headed for Southampton with a special license, and this time Miss Rucastle, or rather Mrs. Fowler, is really going to America on our honeymoon.
Oh, it is quite romantic, isn't it, Holmes?
You and your romance, Watson. You're a regular old woman.
Well, I'm glad we were able to help the poor thing, but I wouldn't go back to that house again. Not for twice the salary.
Oh, that reminds me, Miss Hunter. I was talking to a friend of mine about you the other day. She's a private school in Walsall. I believe she said she had an opening for you.
Oh, Mr. Holmes, you're a darling.
No, my dear, it's quite inconsequential. Already know. Shut up, Watson.
Watson, you certainly had some exciting times when you were living with Sherlock Holmes.
I certainly did, Mr. Manning. Those were the days. I mean, never a dull moment. Yes, when I think of the thrilling experiences that Holmes brought into my life, I can almost forgive him for being so deucedly critical.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, before Dr. Watson tells us what next week's adventure will be, here's what to do when you feel any sign of a cold. Here's what to do for prompt relief. Go right to your druggist and say a package of bromoquinine tablets, please. Start taking the tablets right away, according to the directions on every box. You'll be surprised with the prompt action of bromoquinine tablets. You'll be amazed with the way they relieve a cold's discomfort. You'll get results such as to delight and reassure you. You'll say, here indeed is a dependable preparation well worthy of its fame. Don't leave your radio tonight without making a mental note that any sign or suspicion of a cold, you're going to take bromoquinine tablets. You'll probably have more than one occasion to be grateful for the resolution. Remember, bromo, B-R-O-M-O, quinine, Q-U-I-N-I-N-E, bromoquinine cold tablets. Now, Dr. Watson, what about next week, sir?
Well, next week, we shall hear about a noble bachelor who finally married and whose wife disappeared between the wedding and the bridal breakfast.
So this bachelor had a wife, eh? Even Holmes will have trouble explaining that.
Not at all, Mr. Manning, not at all. You'll hear all about it next week. And a most peculiar story it is, too.
You have been listening to a Sherlock Holmes adventure adapted from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, The Copper Beeches, starring Basil Rathbone as Sherlock Holmes and Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson. The dramatization was by Edith Mither. This program is presented from Hollywood every week at this same time by the makers of bromoquinine cold tablets. Quick relief for cold. This is Knox Manning speaking. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
Welcome back. This is one case where the commercials are definitely helpful as to establishing the age of the show. Now, the website I actually found this particular episode on, because there were two productions of The Copper Beeches. This one, the site I downloaded this off of, dated this show as from 1943, so we wouldn't be showing it for a couple weeks. However, the ad told me the sponsor of the show was bromoquinine, and bromoquinine was no longer the sponsor of the show in 1943. Petri Wine had taken over. So, from that, we are able to deduce that this was actually the 1940 broadcast of the Copper Beeches from the 1940-41 season. So, I'm sure a deduction of which Holmes would be proud. All right. I love this whole tension between the sense of detective stories as being logical and there being this emotion in there. I think that, particularly in the way that Rathbone portrays Holmes, there's this, you could almost say, a pretension of detachment. However, for Holmes to be if it were just a matter of logic and figuring it out, Holmes would be like, well, I've got to get there. It wouldn't necessarily matter to him whether he arrived with the governess alive or dead. Instead, it's like, we've got to hurry. Again, there's some definite concern, and that, and so I think that in one way, it's a fascinating contrast because I think Holmes is almost seems somewhat in denial about his own emotional responses from to the cases and how it really engages him. I also love that part where he was discussing why he was more afraid for her in the countryside than in the city. It's actually statistically, it's actually doesn't hold water because they're generally in most small towns there's less chance of something bad happening than in a large city. But I think that the view, as expressed by Holmes here, really does govern a lot of thoughts in Hollywood, both then and now, because you'll always hear this town where everything looks calm, but there's a dark secret. And you see kind of the logic behind it, even if all the statistics aren't necessarily there to back it up. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, hoping you've had a great first full week of 2010, and hope you're getting ready for a great weekend. We're going to get into today's episode in just a second of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. But before we get started, I want to let you know, if you want to contact me, feel free to email me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Also, please cast your vote for us on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. Cast your vote once a month. The comments are always appreciated and a great encouragement, but you can vote without leaving a comment. Also, go to survey.greatdetectives.net. Fill out our survey. Let us know who's listening. That'll help us to find the right sponsors for the show. And we're going to get into today's episode. This comes after the 3-month hiatus we talked about last month, where it just went away for initial run, came back in the middle of the summer. This one, actually, the episode that they came back on July 17th was Here Comes the Death of the Party. That particular episode is missing, as are about 1 in 4 of the Charles Russell scripts. They've got, he did 36 episodes, 20, and 9 of them are missing. This episode is called Who Took the Taxis for a Ride? And as you listen to this, if you've heard or seen the Maltese Falcon, you'll definitely hear some homages to that particular film in there. We see that a lot in our culture, and it wasn't something that was quite as common in the 1940s and 50s. But this is one of those cases, and the Maltese Falcon, of course, definitely played a big role in establishing the hard-boiled school of detection. So we're going to listen to that in just a second. Before we get started, I want to let you know, as you make your travel plans in the new year, if you don't have an action-packed expense account, it's important to get the best deal you can. So remember, as you make your travel plans this year, to go to JohnnyDollarAir.com. JohnnyDollarAir.com, where you can get the best deals on hotels, airlines, and cruises. And you can support the great detectives of old-time radio. Remember that name, JohnnyDollarAir.com. And now we're going to get into today's show. This one is called Who Took the Taxis for a Ride? And then we'll come back.
Everybody knows a taxi driver likes being over-tipped, but you can't blame him for not liking being tipped over.
This is another in the adventures of America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator, Johnny Dollar. At Insurance Investigation, he's only an expert. At making out his expense account, he's an absolute genius.
Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, the Nutmeg State Liability Underwriters, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of my expenditures during my investigation of the disappearance of 12 Apex cabs. Or, who took the taxis for a ride? Expense account, item 1, $3.10, train fare Hartford to New York. Item 2, $1.10, dinner en route. Item 3,
$18. Club car. Expense account item 4. $1.30. Cab fare from station to garage and offices of Apex Taxi Company. I naturally waited for an Apex cab, but could have saved my time. The driver told me nothing. Except that the man who came rushing out of the Apex office when we pulled up was the big boss, Mr. Gordon McKissick. Thanks, driver. He's just the man I'm looking for. Here.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, McKissick!
I can't stop now. I'm in a hurry. See me tomorrow.
Wait a minute, will you? I'm Johnny Dollar from the insurance company.
Oh, good. That's different. Just time. Come along.
Where are we going?
Come on, tell you in the car. Just had a call from the police. Another one of my cabs has been stolen.
Huh?
They found the driver slugged and unconscious, and I got to get out there. I tell you, Dollar, I'm going crazy. This has got to stop. It's not only driving me out of business, it's driving me out of my mind. The police have done their best, and Lord knows I have too, but I'm about ready to give up. This makes 12 of my taxi cabs disappeared off the face of the earth. It's fantastic. I can't believe it.
Hold it, McKissick. Do us both a favor, will you?
Huh? What?
Play cucumber for a few seconds.
Oh.
Remember, the insurance company I represent has plenty to scream about, too. What I need is some facts.
I haven't got any facts. And if this keeps up, I won't have any taxis. They're gone, that's all. 12 of them, that's all there is to it.
Any idea of a motive? Some new kind of car theft?
That's what the cops say.
Okay, what's your idea? Robbing the drivers?
You don't have to steal a cab to rob a driver. It's ridiculous.
All right, then. What else could it be? Competition? Sabotage?
That's my guess. Competition. So far, it's only a guess. I'd give anything to know.
So would the insurance company. Anything. They'd even give up my happy young life.
This is it. 13th and East River.
Yeah, and there's the crowd. Humanity's strongest magnet. Blood.
Please, stand back.
Hey, officer.
What do you want?
Look, here's my ID. This man is McKissick, the victim's boss. How about getting us through that crowd?
Well, all right, but I don't know. The right side of his face don't feel much like talking. It's caved in. Stand aside now. Come on. Move. Out of the way.
Come on, Dollar. Let's move in.
Open them up. I can't breathe in here, let alone the hurt man.
Get out of the way, will you?
Okay, Mr. Dollar. Here you are.
Oh. Hey, are you right? Is this one of your men, McKissick?
Yeah, George Brandon. Been with me 4 years.
Oh. Brandon, listen to me. Who did it? Do you know who did it? Try hard, will you?
Never saw him before.
Yeah, Brandon, only one. Well, what did he look like? Come on, boy.
Hey, little guy. Dark. He talks funny.
He talks funny? How, Brandon? How? An accent? Come on, Brandon. Well, that's it.
All right, clear the way. Stand back. Clear the way for the ambulance.
The ambulance. The ambulance turns out to be the wrong kind of a wagon. Expense account, item 5, $28. Transportation the following day, visiting hospitals and the homes of the other 11 Apex drivers who had lost their cabs. During the course of this, I contracted a severe case of what GIs used to refer to as Jeep seat. Out of 11 interviews, I got 3 clues. 1, that up until last night's killing, the cab nappers had worked as a team. The little dark guy with an accent, as described by the dead driver Brandon, and a 300-pound accomplice wearing a seersucker suit, a Panama hat, and a complexion akin to a perspiring blob of leaf lard. This heavier of the two heavies, it seemed, never actively participated in any of the rough stuff, merely assuming the role of director of operations. Clue number 2, that in each instance, the driver's uniform cap was also stolen, which indicated to me merely that the getaway driver was very much interested in looking like a cab driver. And finally, clue number 3. From the most disgruntled of the drivers interviewed, the fact that the fleet owner McKissick had spent 3 years bootlegging, another 4 bookmaking, and had spent some very short vacations getting away from it all in prison, which naturally led me back to McKissick's Apex garage and office.
Come in. Oh, Dollar. Well, what have you found out?
Well, I'll tell you, McKissick. So far, I've just hit the ABCs. Later on, I'll get to the XYZs.
Look, Dollar, I'm getting fed up with double talk.
What I want to talk about is a double life. Yours.
What?
I once broke a leg jumping to a conclusion, so don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm doing. But a less experienced investigator might immediately assume that a man like you, an ex-bootlegger, ex-bookmaker, ex-jailbird, just might be stealing his own cabs for the insurance money. Now, wait a minute. Don't get that way, or I might also get the idea that you have a killer instinct.
My record's my own business. It was okay with the Hack Bureau. It was okay when that company sold me the insurance, so it'll have to be okay with you because you're stuck with it.
Nobody's calling you guilty.
Okay.
Okay, all I'm telling you is this. I want your cabs off the street until this thing is cleared up.
That's big talk, little man.
When the day shift comes in at 4:30, tell them to park their cabs in the garage. And you can tell your dispatcher the night shift isn't working tonight.
Bad enough to have my competition running me out of business. Now the little helper from the insurance company shows up to finish the job, huh?
I'm not trying to put you out of business. I'm trying to keep you in.
Well, it don't sound like it.
No cooperation from you, no insurance. I'll have it canceled as fast as I can get to a phone. How about it?
Okay, Dollar. I can't do anything about it. But if I were you, I wouldn't be caught hanging around here by any one of those drivers you're putting out of work. Some of them play rough.
You can always depend on a cab driver for being on time, when it's time to knock off work. By 5 o'clock, the garage was full of taxis and carbon monoxide fumes. By 5:30, it was devoid of humanity, and a night watchman I'd met before stood guard outside the locked gate. At 6 o'clock, a visitor dropped in on him, followed almost immediately by me.
Senor, it is so important that I find it.
Yeah.
It contains everything I have in the world almost.
Yeah.
All my money, even my
What's
passport.
this, Benny?
Huh? Oh, Mr. Dollar. Yeah. Well, the young lady claims she lost...
My purse, senor. I hired one of your taxi cabs this afternoon and left my purse in it. It is so important that I get it.
Yeah. I told her to call Lost and Found in the morning.
But, senor, what will I do tonight?
While we're trying to figure that out, would you join me in a drink?
I would like that.
Her name was Rita Guastella. She was a dark type, so I took her around the corner to a dark saloon. On the way in, we passed 4 grumbling Apex cab drivers shooting hot looks at me over cold beers. I arranged her in a booth so I could keep an eye on them, in case their intentions were no good, and an ear on her story, which I knew wasn't.
This is my first trip to America. I came from Spain 2 weeks ago. This afternoon I was shopping on Fifth Avenue, and that is when I took the cab from 49th Street to the Sherry Netherlands Hotel.
49th, Sherry Netherlands.
Yes.
What time did you take the cab?
Wait, I'm not sure exactly.
It would help.
Oh, well, it was exactly 10 minutes after 4. I remember now. I looked at a clock.
And what time did you arrive at the hotel, Marita?
Why are you writing all this down?
Just trying to help you find your purse.
Oh, but I do not want to put you to any trouble. I am perfectly willing to search through the taxis myself.
Honey, the city of New York has gone to a lot of trouble to save you that trouble. Every driver has to keep a record of every trip. Where he picks up his passengers, where he drops them, and when. He puts it on a big card. So all we have to do is find out which card has your trip listed on it, then we'll know which cab. Then we'll go to the little cab and probably find your little purse. All right?
Oh, it is very good of you, senor. If you would not mind the trouble.
Sometimes bothering with this kind of trouble eliminates my employer's troubles. How about another martini? Expense account, item 6. $4, bar tab. Tip to waiter, $1. And here's a tip to young ladies who are pretending that they just came from Spain 2 weeks ago. Don't order bird bath martinis and put them away in one gulp. The drinking taste of Spanish ladies is more the sherry type. And martinis are hard enough to get used to in 2 years, let alone 2 weeks. Or who knows, maybe she was just in a hurry to get to the Spanish olives. One thing was fairly apparent, though. She seemed to be in a hurry to get something out of one of those cabs, and not by way of the Lost and Found department. The least I could do, both as a gentleman and an insurance investigator, was to accept her phony-sounding story and take her back to the garage. I arm in arm the sometime senorita around the block, passing the time in a conversation not exactly based on her mother's favorite recipe for rosa con pollo. As we passed the office portion of the Apex cab building, I gave up looking into her eyes and saw something that was open even wider, the garage gate.
Then what is it?
The watchman, he's gone.
Perhaps he just stepped inside.
Look at the stains on the sidewalk. Blood.
Oh, Bridewell. It's been...
Bridewell? Who's Bridewell?
I do not know.
Who's Bridewell?
Please, let me go. Let me go, please, Johnny. You're hurting my arm.
Rita had twisted away and was hightailing it up the street. I went stamping up the ramp in the direction of the source of the scream. On the way up, I hit the light switch. In this racket, even big boys should be afraid of the dark. The first portal, I slowed my run into a pussyfoot pace and edged around the corner, sliding my back along the dispatcher's counter. When I got halfway down, the corner of my right eye picked off a pair of high black shoes, night watchman type. Heels on the floor, toes pointed up, sticking out from behind the end of the counter. I didn't have time to get a look at the rest of them. Something so round, so firm, and so fully loaded gave me a cold steel kiss under the left ear.
Pray do yourself the favor, sir, of remaining absolutely still. Now you may turn around.
Would this be Mr. Bridewell?
Good indeed, sir.
Well, what about the night watchman?
Have no fear for him. I am fortunately accomplished in the administration of first aid. With a good deal of practice. I've seen to it that he's resting comfortably.
I'll bet.
Well, Victor, my boy, I trust your search was successful.
Success? Somebody beat us to it. All them cabs has been searched.
Nonsense, my boy. How can you tell in so short a time?
How about taking a look for yourself, fat boy?
You couldn't possibly have picked over all of them. Proceed with the searching quickly. In the meantime, perhaps our friend here is the proprietor of the search that preceded ours.
In this case, practically anything could happen.
Yes, anything could. Knowing that should encourage you to mind your manners. Now, sir, will you accompany me to my hotel where we can discuss this further?
With you holding that .38 caliber steel-engraved invitation in your hand, I'd be a perfect cad to refuse.
In just a moment, we'll return to the second act of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar. But first, your armed forces are constantly searching for new methods and devices for national security and better peacetime living. Today's serviceman is a skilled professional who works with advanced techniques and equipment. If you're interested in science and technical subjects, your armed forces offers you a great opportunity now. Find out how you can join the world's greatest scientific enterprise, the Armed Forces of the United States. Now, with our star, Charles Russell, we return to the second act of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar. And tonight's story, Who Took the Taxis for a Ride?
Looking for some stolen taxicabs and wound up in a hotel room looking stupid. Not wishing to make this affirmative effect, I put my mind to work, and the fruits of its labor went something like this. Whoever had been stealing those cabs, and I figured I was face to face with one of them now, had not been stealing the Apex rolling stock for the cabs themselves, but for something evidently hidden in one of them. From here on in, there was only one way to play it, by ear. That was easy, because the pasty-faced 300-pounder draped in a double-breasted seersucker tent was doing all the
Back
talking.
in 1912, when I was expelled from Oxford University as a result of an unfortunate association with an unscrupulous proctor, I arrived at this decision, sir. It's sometimes not profitable to be on the apparently right side. I make myself clear?
Well, in a roundabout way, I think so.
Now then, I am thus fully acquainted with my position in regard to this matter of the Scarlet Madonna. But you, where do you stand?
I'm running a one-man escort service for Rita Guastella.
Marita, so. The lovely but unwise Marita has taken unto herself an accomplice, has she? Well, as long as you're allied with her, you and I must be at cross purposes.
Well, I'm open to suggestions.
Good. The girl is nothing more than a penniless adventuress, a common thief. But I, sir, may be able to tempt your transient loyalties with some very fetching terms.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Victor?
It's our man, all right. I knocked it out of that night watchman when he came to. There was only one guy in that garage besides us. This is him. Let's go to work.
Now, here, Victor. This is not the time for violence. The gentleman and I are about to discuss terms of mutual profit. Are we not, sir?
You were discussing. I was listening.
Yes. You'll find that I can be concise when the situation demands that I be. Shall we start with a figure of, say, $5,000?
I got nuts. Let me work him over.
Well, Victor, you kindly remember that I deplore violence. Well, young man, what do you say?
Nuts to your 5,000, Mr. Bridewell.
Good heavens, man. Have you lost your mind? What do you think the Scarlet Madonna is worth to you?
Well, so far it's been worth one man's life, 12 taxicabs. On a used car lot, that comes to more than $5,000.
$7,500 there.
Keep coming.
Now, see here now. There's not only a limit to my generosity, there's a limit to my patience. How else do you expect to realize such a hundred profit?
I haven't made up my mind.
Perhaps I can help you. Here are the problems you face. The Scarlet Madonna is no ordinary gem to be disposed of through the ordinary channels. You say have the faintest notion of the importance of the jewel.
I've got a hunch I could retire for life on it.
A very short life it might be. It'd be a pity if your blood were mixed with that already shed through the centuries over the Scarlet Madonna.
Now, don't waste time with that story, fat stuff. We haven't got all week.
My purpose in this repetitious recitation is bona fide. The bloody history may convince our friend that no one since the year 1256 has been able to share for any appreciable length of time the company of the Scarlet Madonna.
Hey, tell him about the
For that
pirate.
was the year it was fashioned. He worn the vestments of John of Vicente. On March 20th that year, he was ordered by Alexander IV to hasten to the province of Tuscany to aid in the routing of the heretics.
The pirate.
There, John was murdered and robbed of this jewel. And since that date, it has never ceased its bloody journey through history. England, France, and Spain.
Don't forget the pirate, fat stuff.
Thank you, Victor, for your helpful interest. Indeed, it is true. During one of its bloodier experiences, it was woven into the beard of an Alsatian pirate, from which it fell when his head tumbled into the basket beneath a guillotine.
Yes, that one kills me. You see, mister, don't go losing your head.
I'm trying not to. Look, Bridewell, if this rock is so hot, how come you're willing to risk your pudgy little neck for it?
Victor here and I are only the temporary middlemen for this infamous gem.
You aren't yet.
Am I to understand that you refuse?
Well, I must say you tell a very good story. But the answer is still nothing doing.
I told you, fat stuff. We're wasting your time on this guy.
All right, Victor. That's enough. Here, now, get up, young man.
Keep that monkey off of me, or I'll yell the roof off this joint.
Yes, no, that won't be necessary. Now, put your hands up, please. Now, Victor, go through his pockets. Not that anyone would be foolish enough to carry the Scarlet Madonna.
Okay, now. And easy.
You'll kick your teeth in.
Don't try it. Hey.
All right.
You know what we got here? An insurance stick.
I know, Victor. One gun is enough.
Not for me, it ain't. It must be from the company insuring the rock.
No, Victor. I am thoroughly familiar with the policies covering the Scarlet Madonna. What's the gentleman's name?
Johnny Dollar from Hartford, Connecticut.
And right now, thinking there's no place like home. I'm leaving.
No, not alive, you ain't. We can't let him out of here. He's red hot for us.
Put down your weapon, Victor. There's been trouble enough.
Now you don't.
Oh, yes, I do. Back off, Buster.
Now, Victor, I must insist. Let him get away.
Let go of me.
Insurance investigator, whatever. If he knows where the jewel is, he's more good for us alive than dead. More valuable than even you.
The elevators weren't fast enough. I hit every fourth step down 8 flights of stairs to the lobby, out into the street.
Mr. Dollar. Johnny. Johnny, I must see you.
Oh, Rita. Well, this saves me looking for you. You just tag right along. Taxi!
Here you are, sir.
After you, Lady of Spain.
Thank you, Johnny.
You're welcome.
Oh, my poor Johnny. What did they do to you?
A gentleman named Victor hung a right hand on me, complete with signet ring.
Oh, Johnny.
Oh, never mind that hanky. I'm not in the mood to be dabbed at.
I'm so sorry. Johnny, what did they tell you?
Oh, no, you don't. First, I want to hear what you have to tell me. Then we'll compare stories.
Wait. There's not much to tell. The Scarlet Madonna is rightfully and legally mine. My only crime was to bring it into this country illegally through customs. I met Bridewell and that horrible Victor on the ship. And when I got to New York, I realized that they were following me. I was terrified.
That I'll believe.
I was in a taxi cab, and they followed me in another. It forced us to a curb, and well, I hid the jewel in the upholstery of the taxi. Then I jumped out and fled for my life. Oh, I remember it. It was an Apex cab. I've been trying to find the exact one ever since.
So apparently are they. How'd they find out?
They ran after me that night. They searched me and all of my belongings. And then when I started my search, they realized what I was doing.
Looks like anybody can catch the brass ring on this merry-go-round.
Please, Johnny, tell me that you will help me to recover the Madonna.
Look, gorgeous. All I'm trying to catch up with is a dozen stolen taxi cabs.
But you are not just going to leave me flat.
With that figure? Impossible. I took Rita to a small hotel, got her a room, and while she was taking a bath, I stole her clothes and left her. Locked in that strongest of midtown prisons, nudity. The first joker I went looking for back at the Apex garage was the unfortunate night watchman. I found him sitting up and taking nourishment out of a bottle, and nursing an egg on his head that would have hatched an ostrich.
Oh, it's you, Mr. Dollar.
Yeah.
I tell you, I've been worried about you. Yeah. Thank heavens you're all right.
No thanks to you.
No, what do you mean, sir?
I mean, why'd you tell that sawed-off ape who slugged you around that I searched these cabs in here last night?
Why, I didn't mention you, sir. I told him it was the boss, McKissick.
Huh?
Yeah.
McKissick? Where is he now, do you know?
He just came by. I believe he's next door in his office.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, McKissick. This case is developing more suspects than a garlic breath in a crowded elevator.
Come. I try to level with you. 10,000 is my top offer. Now, turn it over.
Let's see your money. You don't trust me, I don't trust you.
All right, you had your chance. From now on, there ain't no money. There ain't no money in it.
No, mister, don't.
Hey, what's it?
Here's what I owe you. Come on, get up. Boy.
Then I finished the job he had started. I found the Scarlet Madonna clutched in McKissick's dead hand. For a Scarlet Madonna, it was mighty green. It was an emerald about the size of a pack of cigarettes that's been flattened out in your pocket. A Madonna figure was carved in bas relief on one surface. As I stood over the body of McKissick, looking down at the green gem in my hand, I realized where it got its crimson name. For on the floor, outlining my hand, was a spreading pool of scarlet blood.
Well, sir, we meet again.
Yeah, so it seems.
May I offer you my congratulations, at the same time request that you hand over the Scarlet Madonna?
Being unarmed, as you are, you're not welcome to it.
Well, perhaps I have something more persuasive than a weapon. Here are my credentials.
I'll look at them if you'll back up against the wall.
Very well. You'll also find there a letter authorizing me to the legal possession of this infamous, this hateful, this accursed instrument of greed. Will explain that it's been my odious duty to retrieve it for its rightful owner, the Stillwell Museum in London, from which it was stolen by Victor and his erstwhile lady-in-waiting, the exotic Rita.
Insurance investigator. You? Where do you come from? What's your outfit?
Yes, I thought I'd set you back on your heels. I'm from London. Pity we didn't have each other's interests classified earlier. We might very well have, shall we say, collaborated in this matter.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's an unvoiced question lurking on the tip of your tongue. My association with the bestial Victor.
Well, at this point, I didn't want to insult you.
Yeah, think nothing of it, my boy. Due to a fortunate similarity in voice and physique to your accomplice actor, Mr. Sidney Greenstreet, I find myself automatically listed as undoubtedly the villain of the piece. In this case, and in many others during my fantastically successful career as an insurance investigator, I was able to align myself with the basic source of the villainy involved. Further, I pray that you not accuse me of being associated with any of the physical violences which have punctuated this case. In short, this Victor fellow occasionally slipped through my fingers.
Look, all I'm trying to find is 12 lousy taxi cabs.
Well, then, your troubles are at an end, my boy. I shall write out an address.
Fine.
And there you shall find them unharmed in the warehouse hard by the East River.
Okay.
You'll forgive me, I'm sure, if I tell you that in this case, it is but another small milestone and the glorious pathway strewn with superior accomplishments in solving those minor mysteries evolved by the niggardly minds of the sniveling criminals who would offend the sanctity of that guardian of the peace of the public mind. In short, Company.
Amen. Expense account, item 7. $1.95, one evening gown, which was hard enough to find, but would probably be even harder to wear at that price. Purchased an all-night salon de mode on 136th Street. This dress I gave to Mr. Bridewell to take with him when he went calling on Senorita Rita Guastella, prior to turning her over to the police. Expense account, item 8, $6.10. One bottle of you-know-what, with which to gargle the half-good, half-bad taste left by this case out of my mouth. Expense account, item 9, transportation. No, come to think of it, you can forget this item for a while. I think I'd better stay here in Manhattan and rest up a bit. Expense account, item 9, $400. Advance. Entertainment and things, while resting on my laurels. Or possibly Mr. Bridewell's laurels. But anyway, resting. Expense account total, $1,100. You fill in the cents. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed by Norman MacDonald and stars Charles Russell, with script by Paul Dudley and Gil Dow. Featured in the cast were Herb Butterfield as Mr. Bridewell, with Paul Dubove, Lillian Baeff, Lou Krugman, Junius Matthews, Jan Arvin, and Jack Crucian. The special music is written and conducted by Leith Stevens. Be sure to be with us again at the same time next week, when another most unusual expense account is handed in by
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
The great hit tunes of early 1939. Deep Purple, Penny Serenade, I Cried for You. How many more can you remember dancing to, romancing to? You'll hear them in smart new 1949 arrangements when your hit parade on parade comes along immediately over all of these same CBS stations. Alan Botzer speaking. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. I love that Sidney Greenstreet remark towards the end. They're being pretty transparent about what they were going for here. Of course, there would be no hard feelings at all from Dashiell Hammett because Sam Spade was actually airing on CBS at the time that Johnny Dollar was. They actually had, at the same time, they had Philip Marlowe, Johnny Dollar, and Sam Spade. All three shows actually airing on CBS at the same time. And Gil Dowd, who was the head writer for Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar, was actually a former writer for Sam Spade. And I think you see that kind of Sam Spade dynamic in the Dollar character, because he does some things I couldn't imagine, say, Bob Bailey's performance of Johnny Dollar doing, such as the way of stealing the girl's clothes so that she would not go anywhere. I couldn't imagine Bob Bailey's Johnny Dollar doing that. But that was the way Russell played it. And it was played very spadishly in these early episodes. All right, well, we're going to wrap this up. Spadishly. I think that's a new adjective. Chandler-esque, spadishly. Okay. Well, send your comments, spadishly or not, to box13 at greatdetectives.net. And again, please cast your votes for the show over at Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. But from Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.